hot dogs exploding from guns. It's the 4th of July, motherfucker. Happy America.
Yay!
Hello everyone, it's time for another IndieCent special, and this year for 4th of July, we have Joe with us because I got an idea for a game that I know he already loves.
Yes.
And plus Megan's also busy with helping me with the new anime podcast.
Yes, I love this game so much it broke my 360, so that tells you a whole lot.
A game lavished by critics, given a 2 by Destructoid.
Yes, and they obviously played it on hard, and we'll explain that later, why.
They obviously didn't play it at all.
Alright everyone, we're going to be talking about another semi-big game, but also, like every time we talk about a semi-big game, we make sure we pick something weird, and Obsidian trying to do the BioWare jump and failing miserably seems about the right way to do it. This is Alpha Protocol, everyone, and it was actually the lead developer on this, I'm happy to announce, was Chris Avallone, aka the best boy. If you just ignore Fallout New Vegas Honest Hearts, just ignore Honest Hearts, we don't talk about that. No, we don't talk about that. But yeah, this is a really good game that no one seems to like for some reason.
Oh, there are reasons, and I get them, but, you know, they're kind of overblown.
Before we get into it, though, since this is a special, we will not be doing the news, and I really don't feel like talking about Randy Pitchford. Because there's just so fucking much to talk about in source for that, God.
And of course there was E3, but we'll not get into
Nobody
that either.
cares. Nobody cares about E3. If you do, you're a sheep. And you need to stop enjoying capitalism. It needs to stop. These are the rules now. Alright everyone, let's just go ahead and get into what have you been playing. Or we've been playing, or whatever. Okay, who wants to start us off? Since it's only 3 of us, we each get 10 minutes, and I do not have the timer with me, so I'll just watch the clock.
Okay, I can go first.
Go first, you got 10 minutes.
Alright, so there was a game I was going to talk about. It was a certain Xseed published game by Falcom, but they removed somebody off the credits who had worked very hard on it, and because they no longer work for the company, so I'm not going to talk about their game. There you go.
Yay!
Alright, moving on. The big one was the thing they announced out of nowhere, which is the collection of mana, which, yeah, Nintendo just had their E3 conference and like, here, you can buy this now. And it's the collection of Final Fantasy Adventure, Secret of Mana, and Trials of Mana, which is formerly Seiken Densetsu 3 and was not available here. So I've just been pretty much playing that all this week and trying to get through the various difficulty spikes, but
the amazing part is that they're selling old games, but they're not ROMs they stole from the internet and then gave cease and desist notices to those same sites that gave them the ROMs in the first place.
The development was by M2, so they did a decent amount of work. Most of all, what they found is that they expanded the dialogue in the program so they could put more dialogue in, because the American dialogue is longer and less truncated. So they had to get in and redo that so they could make the translation work how they wanted it. So they did do a few things, at least. And M2
Yay.
does have a general good reputation.
That's more than Nintendo just doing nothing but stealing ROMs. Hooray. I will never shut up about this. I genuinely hate Nintendo for that.
No. Everybody's shit these days, so...
At least they could do the decent thing and actually sell all their old games instead of selling only like 50, is it now?
Believe me, as somebody who owns all of the virtual console stuff and cannot transfer them to the Switch, I understand, but we're not going to, stomp on my time talking about this, but...
Okay.
Seiken Densetsu 3 was never released here. It was one of the big ones that was never released here, like Terranigma, Star Ocean, some other stuff, because it was at the end of the Super Nintendo life cycle, and it's probably arguably the best game that was never released in America. And playing it again, certain things popped out at me. The biggest thing for me is it fixed the battle problem I had with Secret of Mana. Secret of Mana, is arguably a great game, and I'm not going to argue with people who do consider it, but as aesthetically perfect as it is, and the visuals are wonderful, the soundtrack is the top 5 of all time, or at least on my list, but playing it is a little bit of a mess because of the battle system, which is the percentages, where you have to wait for it to charge up to 100 before you attack. If you even attack with 95%, you'll do minimum damage, and so you're just sitting there waiting and dancing around and waiting for stuff to happen. And the battle system is buggy, so even when you do, sometimes you don't hit. Sometimes it takes 3 seconds to register that you hit or that they hit you, and it's just... You don't even know you've died sometimes until 5 seconds after a long battle sequence. So,
insert Fist of the North Star joke here.
Yeah. They will literally just sit there for 3 seconds and then suddenly just fall dead. So, the battle system, it's still buggy. There's still problems, like if you die, you have to wait until your person casts spells or does whatever they just did and then fall dead before you can use the revival item. Otherwise, you have wasted an item because it's still assumed they were alive, even though they just got the death blow. So, but what Trials of Mana does is the battle system is now you don't have to wait. You can hit whenever you want. You can run whenever you want. Nothing takes away... There's no percentage system you have to worry about. So you can attack and you can build up special attacks. And you can use those when you build them up. And you will get class changes that give you more attacks. And you can get more spells, or you can change how your character works. Like some people will get buffs and debuffs. Some work on magic and other stuff. Or some people get ninja skills that if you learn how to use them, they can be effective. So that is an intensely greater experience, even though Seiken Densetsu 3 or Trials of Mana is kind of falls into a lot of problems that late Super Nintendo game is, which is mostly a lot of the RPGs look exactly like the same thing, which is they look like a mix between Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, because those were the massive titles at the time. So there's a desaturation of color, there's a zoom out, so the sprites are less detailed, but you can see more of the land, and most of the land is like craggy cliffs around, even though it's incredibly detailed. But it's weird because I looked through pictures of Star Ocean, Tales of Fantasia, and Seiken Densetsu 3, and all three of them at times look like the exact same games, even though the franchises they belong to look drastically different now, and that's kind of where it was. But it was really fun going through it. Even though the end game is kind of gets ridiculously elongated, and you have to do a lot of menu jumping because no matter what, you still have the ring menus, and you still have to open them up and select the spell, use the spell, and then you have to wait for it to load up and use the spell. And then you have to do that for your defensive magic, you have to do that for your offensive magic, and you have to do that for your recovery magic. And that takes a long time for an action RPG. But it's still a really great game.
Tell us about the cat girl.
Wait, what cat girl? Which... Because
one that does all the cat puns.
If you're talking about Charlotte, no, not the cat girl. The guy is. They have there's a salesman in Secret of Mana who's a cat, and like, what do you want, meow, and stuff like that. So it's an entire race of people. So there's not very many in this one, actually, but if you choose one person, Hawkeye, they have a best friend who is one of the cat people, and they will say meow in the middle of the sentence, replacing a word or adding it at the end. But if you go later in the game, and then you get to the end game where you fight these 8 gods, there'll be these salesmen, and one of them is Josephine, who is a female, and they talk the same way, so... But he's not really the problem because they are minor parts. What you have to worry about is Charlotte, who is one of the main characters and the only main character who can use healing magic. And she is by far the most irritating part of the game because she talks in a precious voice all the time. Isn't she just the most precious and cutest little girl?
Ooh, what these?
But if you can avoid her, which you can, but at the end you have to build up like your storage for all of your healing items. Gets astoundingly large, and since the interface is a little slow, it takes a lot to manage it. And you can only hold 9 things at once, but you can put things in storage. So you can have 99 things, but you can only have 9 per battle, and you will just be constantly going into storage and switching out without healing magic. But on the other hand, you don't have to deal with Charlotte. So, been playing that. I've also been playing the Castlevania collection, which is
1 minute.
1 minute? Okay. So, Castlevania collection, there's that, and I've been starting Yakuza 0.
It's a good game.
It's a good game, but it has the faults of all the Yakuza game. I just want to fucking play it. Let me fucking play. No, I don't need another 20-minute cutscene. God damn it, let me play the fucking game. There's so much fun stuff to do in Yakuza, but the problem is you gotta get to it. And this is even worse than Xenosaga games with the cutscenes. Like, I once played Yakuza, I think 4 was it, and it starts with 2.5 hours of cutscenes before you can save. And if you don't get through it, if you have to go to work for something, you have to watch it all over again. And that's why I've liked the Yakuza series, but I've always had a chip on my shoulder about it. And with that, I will cede the floor.
Alright, I'll go ahead and go next. I have been playing 4 games lately, and 2 of them are, once again, Mass Effect.
Oh, darn.
I understand that trap.
Yeah, I'm on the 3rd playthrough now. I started, my first playthrough was as an infiltrator, second was as a vanguard, which I might have already spoiled myself because that's clearly the best class, because you get an infinite melee combo. It's ridiculous. And now I'm on doing Sentinel, which is interesting because you get super armor, and that changes the entire game because you can just ignore cover. You can just ignore cover and flank enemies and just charge in there and let your characters help you in the back. I like getting Garrus and Masani and just having them snipe enemies while I'm going in with my armor. It's really fun. And I decided to just start as Paragon in the first game and then go the Renegade for the other 2 games. I'm almost done with 2. I'm finishing up some loyalty missions and DLC. And then I'm going to go on to 3 and complain more about Casey Hudson solving space racism. Casey Hudson sucks so much, guys. It's amazing because he was deeply involved in the first game and he has good character writing chops, but oh my god, his theme work sucks so bad.
I just let it go because after the response of 3, I do not listen to anything any fans say about anything, and they were sending death threats to Hudson and all sorts of stuff, and it was just hearing the worst shit ever, and I'm just like, I am not on any BioWare fan stuff anymore. I just go away from it. It's one of those things where I like the games, I hate the fandom.
That's fair, but it's also worth pointing out that he may also be a general bad boss, because guess who was in charge of Anthem at first and then at last, because he came back after quitting the company to finish Anthem. And guess what the management at BioWare is?
Crunch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not solely to blame, of course, but he's a large part of it, I'm guessing. But at least he seems to be trying to change, so I'll give him some credit there. But yeah, Mass Effect 2 is still one of the best RPGs ever made, and I will hear nothing else about it. And I'm going to play this game 3 more times after, all 3 games 3 more times after this, just so I can play as all 6 fucking classes and be free forever, because I will have done everything. Except go full Renegade, because you never go full Renegade. Paraphrasing Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
I want to say I finished Borderlands the pre-sequel, but I did not. I just stopped at a certain point. The thing about Borderlands the pre-sequel is that it's a very good game. I think it has some of the most interesting lore building in the series, and I like that it's actually shorter than 2, but it still feels satisfying on its own. The problem is a lot of the bosses were designed solely with multiplayer in mind. So if you're playing by yourself, the difficulty spike is insane. It's, oh god. There is a mini boss in like the last area that I just threw up my hands and quit because I actually ran out of my 1,000 pistol clip. I was playing as Nisha because she gets to dual wield at the end of one of her trees, which I was doing. And I had barely damaged the thing because it had so many shields and was spawning so many enemies I had to kill first. I was just like, done. I just looked up the ending elsewhere and that was it. If I ever go back to it, it's going to be with a friend. We're playing through the Borderlands games right now. So like, I'm not done with it forever. I'm just like, I literally cannot finish this game solo. It's, wow. And it's a shame because there's a lot of cool stuff in it. Like, cryo damage is really fun. The lasers are more interesting than I thought, and I may try them again on another playthrough. Nisha is a fucking beast to play as. It's amazing. There was one mission with claptraps where you have to pick one to shut down and one to claptraps. Talks very slow all the time, and at one point it just started reciting a dubstep song, except still in that slow voice is like, wub, wub, wub. Wub wub, boo, wub. Did you like my song? And that made my stupid fish brain happy.
It's a joke that's not going to age well.
And of course, the last game I played is a game that I'm doing for commission. Joe knows about it because he's the one who commissioned it to me. And I gotta tell you, this is one of the most interesting fucking games ever made. Neo Feud. Yes. I've talked about this before, and since I've talked about it, I have discovered that the creator of this game is a POC, but he is not black, he is Native Hawaiian, and this explains so much. Oh boy.
Yeah, I was looking at you playing it, and it's just like, I realized, oh god, this feels like it was written by a white guy who was trying to do good, but had never met a black person in their lives.
And it turns out this guy's met a lot of black people because he's actually, like, he himself is a social worker who has lived in, lower-end neighborhoods. So, like, a lot of this game is his personal experience, but, the character of Proto J was a very bad call. there's a lot of good in this game. There's like a series of monologues from a dead scientist you read in like his recordings that I thought was very good. But then you get to like, anytime Proto J opens his mouth, it's the robot teenager with the dreads who was smoking when you first met him, even though he's a robot. Yes, he says the N-word a lot. He cusses. He throws in a lot of ghetto slang that only white people think is ghetto slang. It is genuinely one of the most painful things I've ever heard, and the fact the game keeps treating him like a joke and not a serious character most of the time is the part that's just like, Oh, and also, you're working for a time-traveling princess, and she's part of the Clinton Bush family. Satire.
Commentary.
It's amazing how much this game gets right, but then how much it just like, you know what? We can go dumber. I'm really interested to get to the end of this and get this video out, because this has been a trip, but of course Mass Effect comes first and other stuff I have to do for HG 101, but like, I'm working on it in my downtime. It's fucking something. You cannot just breeze through Neofeud. You have to take it in waves.
Breathe it in.
Let's go ahead and let Elmo give his.
I'm definitely not going to need the 10 minutes. I think that I'm the only one who hadn't played Alpha Protocol before. So I'm a stealth gamer at heart. Love me some Splinter Cell, even the bad ones. And so yeah, one playthrough of Alpha Protocol was 30 hours for me. So
yeah, that's about right.
Let's see, what else have I started playing Linear the game. It's like a 3D super hexagon style thing. It's alright. Like an hour ago, I started playing Phoenix Wright versus Professor Layton. The 20 minutes so far that I've played of it, really good. Looking forward to it. Oh jeez, there's gotta be something. Oh, I started I Am Setsuna. But, okay, even though I'm 3 hours into I Am Setsuna, for an RPG, that's kind of like the same thing as being 20 minutes into the Phoenix Wright vs. Professor Layton game.
Yeah.
It's really... From what I have played of it, though, it's walking a very thin line between this is a wonderful, nostalgic throwback to the RPGs of yesterday, and this is literally just... They ripped off the plot from Tales of Symphonia and then they just stuck it in Chrono Trigger. And that was it. And they were like, boom, new game. But that said, I haven't played an RPG for a while, so I'll still play it and I'm still enjoying it. Here's the thing to talk about, Dark. I played Little Red Lie.
Yep.
Relatively recently. And I had a question for you about Little Red Lie.
Okay.
Mainly because it's a story about the two main characters are, let's see, Sarah Stone, I think, and Arthur Fox.
Yeah.
And Sarah Stone is, like, it's one of those games where it's kind of cliche, but you know when a story has, like, such good writing that you think, wow, this was written just for me, even though you know it wasn't. And I started Little Red Lie, and it was like, so there's this woman named Sarah Stone, and she has a bit of a good relationship with her parents because she's going through like some financial and mental difficulties right now, but she feels like she doesn't want to talk about it to her parents that much because they've already got a lot on their plate, where she has a sister who much more openly has these kinds of similar difficulties, and also she doesn't want to put any more on her father's plate because he spends a lot of time caring for her mother who has multiple sclerosis. And that was when I was just like going through my cupboards being like, Will O'Neill, I know you're here, and this is not fun, get out. But the other guy is Arthur Fox, who is she's just amazingly the least likable person ever, but in a way that's still kind of interesting. Like, there are definitely parts through his ridiculous white privilege, alpha male, whatever, story where it's just amazing how much of a completely reprehensible human being he is. And like, I think you mentioned when you were putting it on, like, I'm going back a year and a half now, but I think you put this on your best list for 2017.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep, and like, there's even an author avatar who turns up and says, "Hey, I know that you're waiting to see like, oh, here's an explanation for why Arthur Fox is the way he is, or here's a moment when he realizes he's wrong." That's not going to happen. He's an incredibly rich, incredibly privileged man who has never faced any consequences for any of the bad things he has done. He isn't tortured internally. He's just a really horrible person. That's it. Don't look for anything deeper than that. But it was only by playing through and like seeing things from his point of view that, like, I could see a lot of how both his world and this world is built by and for people like him. There's a moment when he's in a car dealership and he's trying to buy a car, and if you try and sit in one seat while he waits, he will complain and say, "No, I'm not sitting here, there's a better place to sit." And he'll only sit down if you're directly behind the receptionist so that he can ogle her. But he says a line which is like, "Okay, don't think for 1 second that this is like, oh, pervy Arthur looking at this woman. Do you think they weren't thinking this through intentionally when they put the seats here because they wanted all the blood rushing out of my brain and somewhere else so that I could get really excited over what a fancy car could do for me?" And it's like, damn, Arthur, you're a real piece of shit. You're kind of spot on though. And this dealership was probably made by an Arthur Fox for other Arthur Foxes. But the one question I had is, because I said I had one big problem with one of the endings, and I can see how both of the endings would kind of be, let's say, unsatisfying from people who wanted a really happy ending. But I want to know which ending you thought I didn't like, because I remember you saying something like, "Oh, that's understandable that you had a problem with one of the endings."
Honestly, either one.
Take a guess.
I only experienced the one where you don't do the thing.
Wait, what?
You know, the ending is decided by the question you answer at the beginning of the game. The last question. It decides whether you do the thing or don't do the thing at the end.
I am confused, and I thought I had finished the game, but now I feel like I haven't finished the game. Are you talking about signing over the house, or are you talking about the fourth
thing after
taking...
the thing after signing over the house?
Yeah, but I didn't think that actually changed
the
ending.
That does.
Oh, how?
Yeah, remember.
Sorry, because this is all like massive spoilers for people who haven't played Little Red Lie. But yeah, how does the thing at the end change the game then?
Remember the last question you answered at the beginning of the game, the really fucked up one?
I cannot remember, honestly. I'm sorry.
Because that question decides how that last scenario plays out.
Oh.
That's why if you get the moment where you don't do the thing after signing over the thing, that's because of how you answered that last question at the beginning of the game.
Oh. I didn't know that. That's still not my issue that I had with the thing. So here's the thing, yeah, I don't know if I want to get into spoilers. Or if I... all I'll say is this. I got like 3 or 4 hours into Little Red Lie. It took me ages to start because I assumed it would be actual sunlight too, and it's not. It's so much more than that. And after playing it for 3 or 4 hours, I went onto my profile on Steam and I removed one game. I think it was Electronic Superjoy. I had that in my like favourite games showcase. And I removed that and put Little Red Lie in because it was just that well written and that it was incredible. And then I played the end of Little Red Lie and then I went back in and immediately unfavorited it from my Steam selection. It was Sarah's ending, by the way, and yeah, it's obviously the story. You can tell right now that it's not going to have a particularly happy or upbeat ending, but the depths to which Sarah's ending suddenly just descends to and the fact that everything else seems to be, quite has allegories to real life issues. And in Sarah's story, it just very much felt like, and then just the universe just decided that your life was just going to be the shittest life possible because fuck you. The end.
Will O'Neill.
And yeah, that was. I feel like
Have you ever seen his Twitter? It's either funny jokes about video games or extremely depressing existentialism.
Yeah. Well, Sarah deserved better. Although now as soon as we stop recording, I'm going to have to look up Little Red Lie and see what the other endings are.
I like the part where you end the game and then Will O'Neill comes out and calls you a piece of shit and gives you all the achievements because he knows you want them anyways.
Yeah. I thought he only did that if you, asked him. Does he do that anyway?
Oh, and he also says that at least people with the anime body pillows are getting something out of that.
I had so much in my head about Alpha Protocol, and now I'm just like, what was the question in Little Red Lie? And how does it affect... Okay,
the one I can't say because, I would have to give a trigger warning.
I honestly cannot remember anything about it.
How do you not remember that? Oh my god.
There were a lot of questions at the beginning. Okay, there's only 3 or 4, but still, I have a memory like a sieve.
Oh my god, Elmo.
Okay, fine, I'll go back and play Little Red Lie again.
Let's just get on with it.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm here too.
I'm sorry about that, Joe.
You're all right.
We're tap dancing around that one because that game goes places. But anyways, let's just go ahead and get into Alpha Protocol. Okay, I'm going to say right now that this game had a troubling development cycle, but the fact it was delayed from a 2009 release to 2010 so they could actually, make it playable, because Obsidian just seems to be really bad at planning out making games. The fact this came out the same year as Mass Effect 2 did it no favors. Oh, boy.
Yeah, no, you can tell right out of the box this thing was made to be earlier in the 360 and then showed up in the middle of the 360 because it looks like an early 360 game and there are rough edges all around it.
Part of this is because of just general development of the 360 and PS3 area for the early part of it was confusing the shit out of developers, which is why so many games from that era look the same and also terrible. But Obsidian had a especially hard time because for the first half of development, they really had no idea what they were doing, and they were also working on another project for Sega called that was going to be an RPG set in the world of Alien.
That sounds like it would have been good.
Yeah, but the reason it was canceled was because Sega paid a lot of money for the Alien license because they were stupid. Like an absurd amount of money. And they had 2 projects being developed at the same time, and they had to cancel one of them to save the other, and they realized that the RPG would not have sold as well as the FPS. Alien Colonial Marines. And you know what the kicker is? So yeah, Randy Pitchford may have actually saved the Alpha Protocol project by complete accident. And this was before Borderlands 2 came out, and then Sega was like, okay, we got to keep Gearbox on this, so we can have their name on the box. Oh, how that backfired. Mm-hmm. Or didn't, because apparently that game still sold well. Because everything's terrible.
Well, they also put their names on Duke Nukem Forever, even though they were like the last company out of the line. That's the only reason they have it.
Oh no, Gearbox literally owns Duke Nukem now.
Oh. Yeah.
They bought Duke Nukem and then made the game. Then made it their game.
Yeah. Mistake number 2.
So many mistakes. But hey, they saved Alpha Protocol, so Randy Pitchford is now officially done nothing wrong, apparently.
Let's not say that.
He certainly didn't show any abuse of animals or anything. He certainly... well, actually, he did not steal $12 million. He just did the normal shitty millionaire/billionaire thing and went through legal channels and went the company to fuck over his workers. And he probably didn't rewrite a quest in the expansion DLC for 2 to lead into 3 so he could dunk on the former Claptrap voice actor for pointing out that he assaulted him. And, okay, now we're getting off track.
Yes.
I really want to make the money was just resting in my account joke, but that's a joke from Father Ted, and I've heard bad things about the writer of that show recently.
Oh, Lord. So, halfway through development of Alpha Protocol, the game had to be completely rewritten, and this was because Chris Avellone stepped up and became the lead designer for the game, so something could actually get done. And he basically used all the original ideas for locations and wrote a new story around it. He changed the focus of development from just like a stealth action sort of thing to focusing on player choice, which wasn't happening before. And that was probably the smartest decision anyone designing a game has ever made, ever. Because that is the big feature for Alpha Protocol, absolutely. And oh, this is funny. You know the mission debriefs after you finish a mission? Mm-hmm. That was originally a bug. That was a bug, and they realized, oh, that's the thing that's supposed to be in a video game. We should keep that in.
It's like
go on.
Oh, it's like the thing where it tells you your relationship is decreased, and you did this with the thing, and all that other stuff that they tell you.
Oh, no, just the thing after the end of the mission where it tells you how the horrible things you did to all the people.
Ah, okay.
And how many of them went to the hospital if you didn't kill them.
All of them.
There was also going to be a female Thornton option at one point, but because the development of this game was very unlike BioWare's development of Mass Effect, this did not happen because they rushed it so much they did not have time to record voice lines for a female Thornton, so it would just been too much work. This is the only time in history that you can actually make the excuse we did not have the time or money to add in a female character, because like this is different from like an FPS where it's just a skin. Like this is like creating an entirely different character campaign entirely. So yeah, I get it in this case. Let's see. Sega meddling actually bloated a lot of development and delayed it further because they actually made a $500,000 sequence at one point ordered by them, and then they had it cut out because it didn't fit with the game.
Oh God.
This happens a lot with big budget game development, I've noticed. And of course, it's Sega we're talking about. Sega in like still around just a little after the Sonic 06 debacle era, which is another game crippled heavily by terrible management. Just like the story of that game is a nightmare. Oh my gosh. Like Sega had no idea what they were doing at the time, so this doesn't surprise me at all. It's like, it's amazing this game is as good as it is.
Yeah, I would never have guessed that it had actually had a troubled production.
I would because of
just
like...
played it.
Well, I mean, there are some issues with textures loading in, which did not bug me as much as I was led to believe would bug me, because that's the one thing everyone seems to go on about if they hate this game. Of course, the one thing this game is not good at for sure is the gunplay. It's bad. If you play this game as anything but stealth, you will not have a good time.
Yeah, I actually did a douchebag playthrough of this where it's just like I kill everyone, I use the heaviest weapons, I fuck all the girls, and all of that, and I had to put it on easy because the shotgun and the AK-47s are not very good at all.
And the SMG sucks too.
Yeah.
The only good weapons are pistol and sniper rifle.
You can do good with the rifle. It's just, it takes time, like everything else.
Yeah. This game's also very beginner unfriendly, which is just a problem in general with Western RPGs before they started figuring it out. Like, Mass Effect started figuring it out in the same year by just simplifying the level up system to just putting points into skills, and that makes the skill stronger or gives them new properties at the very end of the tree. Obsidian didn't really learn their lesson until I think like Pillars of Eternity, which I played quite a bit of, and I like that they basically just explain to you at the during character creation what everything does. It's a lot of text, but it does help out a lot, and they do little helpful things like once you picked out a class and race and all that, it gives little stars next to stats to tell you which ones are going to be the most important for your character. None of that here.
No.
It's, you don't realize early on because of this game's rush development that some of this is just going to be junk stats. Like, putting stuff into martial arts, why would you do that? Why would anyone do that? Why would you put points into multiple... to a certain point. Why would you put skills into multiple gun types? You're just going to be really bad with all the guns. Because, you do get a limited amount of points to use. For me, I always go stealth with points and pistols so I can get the extremely broken, time stop headshot move.
The chain.
And of course, electronic stuff for hacking and all that, because I want to get all the things. If I can't get all the things, then why am I here? That's another good thing Mass Effect 2 did. You don't have to worry about skills for hacking. It's just a thing you can do.
Yeah, that's why I always played Engineer in the first Mass Effect, because I wanted to open the things, and that I couldn't open the things bothers me.
Yeah, for me, thankfully Infiltrator and Sentinel both have... Actually, I think they all have, electronics at least, so that helps out. And your party's stats in the original Mass Effect do add into what you can and can't unlock collectively.
Yeah, but when you start as a soldier, you can't open shit.
Oh yeah, you need to have Tali with you all the time. Tali and either Garrus or Liara. No, Garrus. Yeah. Let's see. The best way... what's interesting about this game... Well, a lot of things are interesting about this game, but this is probably the only game I know of that has a modern American military theme to it, and it's not rah-rah patriotic, shoot the brown people garbage. Even the first Modern Warfare was garbage, racist trash, and I hate it. Oh no, yeah, the nuke scene, that was neat. That's it. That was the only good part of that game. All the rest of them are bad, except the one in space, because that's in space, and that's cool. The space one is fine. And I guess some of the Black Ops ones where they're everything is terrible and war is pointless, and we should all die, I'm I kind of agree with that. When I'm on a bad day.
Yeah.
So I'm just generally surprised how good this game was, and I was surprised by how many people telling me how bad it was for so long when I first played it, and that was the game that just got me to start my full core series, the first thing I wrote about. And then I started playing Dragon Age Origins and the Mass Effect games and Pillars of Eternity and all these other amazing Western RPGs, including the Shadowrun games, and now I get it. Now I get why this one is the odd man out, because it does have jank.
Yeah.
It might be even jankier than the original Mass Effect, and that game was in the era when everyone was like, we can do physics objects now. Everything needs to be a physics object. Sonic 06 is physics object hell. You could literally just hit a robot with a homing attack and it will break into pieces that are all physics objects that will touch boxes and make them explode into nothing. It's a mess.
And
this is what games were like.
Alpha Protocol, which is still look, ragdoll physics. Fun, huh? Great. Huh?
I just realized Mass Effect 2 still had ragdoll physics. You just never notice because it almost never comes up until you die. That's great.
I'm just still silently fuming over this. Please correct me if I've got this wrong. Because, like, when I was playing the game, I did notice that, you know, every time you die and restart a checkpoint, then for a second, it would be quite low resolution before the textures would kind of properly load. Was that it? Were people just like, oh, it takes a whole second for the textures to appear properly? 3 out of 10.
I suspect it may have been worse on console ports, like how when the original DMC Devil May Cry came out, it ran at 60 frames per second on PC just fine. That's the version I played, but on console it was locked at like 30.
Okay, you're gonna have to give me some space on this one.
It's because of the Unreal Engine, everyone.
Yeah, but you'll have to give me some space on here because I bought it like right when it came out, and I played it a bunch when it came out. And what you have to understand is, you know, this actually had a Gaming Informer article about it a year before it came out, before they just like, you know, redesigned the whole thing. And there was hype behind it because, you know, Mass Effect had already come out. Mass Effect 2 was coming out. So they were making a Mass Effect-alike that was going to handle, like, Deus Ex. There are a couple other games that it's like under it that... And at this point, you know, BioShock had come out. Mass Effect had come out. And all of these things that, I mean, either were really intricately made or had extremely good graphics. And then it came... This came out, and it was in the middle of the road on everything. Which is, the graphics out of the box, there's some good textures here, but everybody had, you know, gone a step further just a few months before, so they were kind of underwhelming. And, you know, the Deus Ex system was not to people's suits because people were like, the big complaint is, I can't play it how I want. I want to do this weapon, but I can't because this weapon sucks. And I can't do a completely pacifist run because there are story, you know, vital sequences where you have to kill a person. And there were...
you know what made that exact same mistake 1 year later? Deus Ex Human Revolution. Even down to the terrible boss design.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was worse in that game because at least the bosses in this game have cool things happening. And the other games, they just shoot you until you die.
Yeah. And the thing is, some of the boss fights here are kind of fun. Like the first one you get into, the bodyguard in Saudi Arabia, where you're actually kind of playing like I want to say American Gladiators type things, where you have to run between cover and grab the, you know, weapon that can destroy the thing. Or you have to... I think that's after the bodyguard, where you have to take out the...
after the bodyguard, you take out the massive super tank from Metal Gear.
Yeah. And then and it's kind of like a similar game in American Gladiators, and that's kind of fun. But
and then of course you have the Omen Dang fight, which is probably the best one to play as a stealth character.
Yeah. Because
it becomes a game of cat and mouse where you're both trying to stealth each other.
But when this came out, it was in the middle of the road to everything, and you know, people were just like, "This isn't just impressing me very much." And then you get into the point where people put it on hard mode. Now, I will say, never play... Like, you can tell the reviewers who played it on hard mode, because hard mode is another level of difficult, and it's where most of the AI bugs are. Not that they don't exist elsewhere, but it's where...
Yeah, they had to scrap, like, the entire planned AI system just to get the game finished.
Mm-hmm.
So at least they got this game finished, unlike KOTOR 2.
Yeah. But, you know, it's where you can really notice that the AI cannot handle ladders at all. Everything gets ridiculously complicated, like the mini games you have to solve 8 things in 30 seconds. And then it gets to be 20 or 10 depending on your skill level. So it's impossible to get things, and the enemies are incompetent and impossible at the same time, and it's just a massive gameplay if you ever play it on hard. And it's just, you should never do that. And the people who really ragged on it, I think it was IGN, and
Destructoid.
Destructoid.
They gave it a 2.
Yeah, I read the review. They played it on hard right out of the box. And they didn't play it in the normal, how everybody should experience it.
No, you have to play it on hard to be the real gamer and have the big penis. I beat the third Shin Megami Tensei game. That means I have value.
And then there's me who just beats Castlevania stuff. And it's just like, I only beat it because I have the memory from the years of doing this as a kid. Like, it is embedded in my DNA, and that's the only reason I can beat it. So, and then I played like the modern stuff, and it's like, I can't do shit with Bloodborne.
Yeah, the thing, Bloodborne and Dark Souls are pretty much die until you figure it out.
Yeah, and I don't have the patience or the time for that, unfortunately.
Amen.
But anyway,
I don't know if it was just better on PC or if it's just been more polished in the last 9 years.
It was not polished.
It was just
they just
coming into, just coming into Alpha Protocol after Splinter Cell, Conviction, and Blacklist. I'm like, wow, this is like the best game ever.
This Obsidian doesn't own Alpha Protocol. Sadly, they had to sell it to Sega, sell the rights to Sega, so they could have enough money to finish the project. No, to keep the company afloat, because they were having their possibility of layoffs at the time, so they had to give the rights to the game to Sega. And of course, Sega removed it from Steam recently because they don't want to pay because of an expired music license. So either they're going to pay for it or somehow patch it out, but I don't think they can do that because I'm betting you they do not have the original source code of the game.
Oh, I'm betting they just, took what they had and ported it, and that's all they did.
It's hard to say, because sometimes Sega does give a crap, like with the Shenmue re-releases, but then you look at the Sonic Adventure PC ports, and they actually, for the first Sonic Adventure, they ported the worst version, the GameCube version, which changed the graphics to make them uglier, and I think it actually removed some content, so hooray.
Hooray.
Yeah, it's the one where Chaos looks ugly as shit instead of actually looking like it's made of water. Sega.
Okay.
At least the Yakuza ports are good.
Yep. So, should we talk about what this game is actually about so we can get people some grounding?
Yes. Let me go ahead and get through that real fast. Alpha Protocol is a espionage thriller about an Agent Thornton who you get to play as. Sadly, you cannot play as a girl, but I understand why in this case. I just wish we had more customizations options, like skin color. It's kind of weird that's not in there. The best I can do is make myself really tan, which kind of works because it's full body tan apparently. But anyways, Thornton is you give Thornton a backstory like a freelancer or a commando or something. And they get recruited into Alpha Protocol, a sort of blacklisted government agency that basically works outside the law of the U.S. and of the world around. But if they get caught, then that's it. They got no backing from the U.S., and the U.S. has plausible deniability. So, that usual get through the red tape shit. He's basically drugged and brought in against his will. So... okay, and he after a test where he escapes his God, why am I blanking on this? His captivity. He ends up getting sent to a Saudi Arabia stand-in country. I forgot to write it down, and has to take down a terrorist organization and their leader Shahid Ali Shahid. What is his title?
Ali al-Shahid.
He's a sheik. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so interesting because, a major point is made that he is an oil baron, but oil has nothing to do with this because what Shahid did was apparently launch a missile at a U.S. passenger plane, so, we gotta do something about that. But it turns out after you finish this first chapter of the game that Saeed is actually being manipulated by another party. He identifies as Halbeck, a sort of combination of the real-world companies who have also played a large part in slowly destroying the world, Halliburton and Bechtel. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, fuck him. And from here, you end up getting burned out of Alpha Protocol. One of your handlers, Mina, ends up deciding to help you out, and you have to travel around the world and try and stop Halbeck's plans, which turns out is to start a Cold War that's just going to end up becoming a third World War, so that's bad. And what's interesting about this game is when I originally wrote about it, and I still agree with this, I'm pretty certain that a lot of the writing is deliberately taking dunks on the ethics of the Bush administration.
Oh yeah, it's not even subtext at some points.
Yeah, the big bad guy of the game, Leiland, what is his last name? I actually forgot. Oh yeah, his last name is Leiland. What was his first name?
Leiland? Henry?
Henry, I think it's Henry Leiland. Damn it, I wrote it down. Let me find it here. I'm sorry,
folks.
I'm sorry about this. It's very late. Yeah, Henry Leiland, we got it right. Hooray, we did it, America. I'm aware Elmo lives in Britain, aka the traitor country, but we forgive him because he ate a hot dog once.
If I ever start acting up, all they have to do is say Boris Johnson, and I just shrink away like, fuck.
Anyways, Henry Leiland, you talk to him through much of the game, through interrogation scenes after the initial mission, and he is basically grilling you on the events that happened in the other 3 missions before you get to the final mission. And he justifies his actions with a shaky moral standing that's not unlike a lot of the Bush cabinet justifications for their actions in getting us involved in the forever war, as we call it now. The war that will never end for all time. Even when the seas come and swallow us up, we will still be in the forever war somewhere underwater, I'm sure.
Because this is what happens when you make a war on concepts.
Yeah, he's basically a dumb idiot moron who looks and sounds smart but isn't, and he's gonna destroy the world because he's a dumbass, and you gotta stop him, and that's the thing. And each, you travel to 3 different countries around the world. You go to Moscow in Russia to figure out where the missiles came from. You go to Rome to look into some other connections that ends up introducing you to a man named Marburg. And you go, well, I should mention right now, is voiced by Jim Cummings, and normally I'd celebrate about that, but it recently came out that his ex-wife accused him of sexual assault and animal abuse, so yeah.
And also Wahlberg.
Yeah, but he died in all of our playthroughs, so it's fine.
And also Wahlberg has a little iffy parts about him, but we'll get to that.
He liked the dude.
Well, it's not only that he likes the dude, but they kind of make fun of it during some parts of it.
Video game.
Yeah.
Oh, and you also go to Taipei, which I actually forgot to write down what country this is.
Chinese Taipei, isn't it?
I want to say it's either Taiwan or it's a definitely country not part of the. It's definitely not part of the Chinese mainland, and that's a big issue in that particular storyline. But I don't remember if it's just a part of China that's not a part of the mainland, or if it's one of the countries that China keeps saying over and over.
It is Taiwan,
that's ours.
by the way.
Okay, it's Taiwan. So it's not China.
Yeah.
Got it. I still can't believe that John Tron actually believes Chinese propaganda. I get the racism part, but that's the part that throws me for a loop. I never want anyone to forget that ridiculous fact. And yeah, of course, that's where you fight Omen Dang, aka the Lost Metal Gear boss. And he's amazing, and I love him. And, of course, how you play the game depends entirely how you spec your character. You can you have 4 different weapon types: SMG, shotguns, pistol, and assault rifles. Sniper rifles are just a thing you find in the area sometimes, or you can purchase them before a mission, so they'll be in certain areas in the map, and then you can make use of them. So you don't have to spec into those.
I kept buying them because I wanted to get the bonus for being, hey, you're a well-researched person who keeps buying intel. But I also was doing non-lethal measures on everyone.
You don't have to buy guns to get the intel bonus. You just buy intel.
Yeah.
So I just wasted all my money on sniper rifles that I just left there.
Oh no, the sniper rifles, that you do have to buy.
Yeah, I just maybe in some way Marburg was just looking at that as a supreme display of arrogance. Like, you paid for someone to dead drop a sniper rifle into my estate, and then you walked past it, looked at it, and went, no thanks.
Video game. You can also spec in this stuff like martial arts, which is just pressing the punch button until the guy dies, and hopefully you'll be able to punch him more than he punches you. Good. And don't punch Marburg because he will kick your ass.
Yep.
Hope
you have the pistol chain on you.
Yeah, the hand-to-hand is very much like every enemy that's not a boss, ha, you're defeated. And then every enemy who is a boss is just you run up and punch them, and then they do a devastating combo that kills you.
Yeah, they do that.
And you're like, oh. I was really lucky that I got to the Marburg fight, and I just had enough skill points to buy Chain Shot.
You can you can also put in gadgets into in electronics. Gadgets are very useful, but they're a little wonky compared to other games I've played. Of course, the Mass Effect games. I only recently figured out how to make proper use of them in a recent run. I just had trouble nailing down how to throw them in the right spot. You get stuff like shock traps that paralyze people and all that. You can spec, of course, there's hacking. You gotta hack the planet. Why would you be playing this game if you didn't want to hack everything? That's how you get more experience and find more things for more story branches. That's why you want to play the game. Why would you ever play this for the gunplay guy who makes the long 2 to 3 hour YouTube videos about big budget games and RPGs, who travels on the road a lot that I'm forgetting the name of that I otherwise really like. I've lost track of everything today.
It's me.
But anyway,
it is Elmo.
The problem with a lot of the
Elmo lives in America and travels across the American wasteland.
Yeah.
Anyway, the problem with a lot of the electronics and some of the guns is they aren't specifically done for this game, and they didn't specifically set parts. There may be 1 or 2 parts, but with the submachine guns, there is a bonus for shooting up multiple people, but the time you will be around more than one person is very rare unless you just set off every alarm known to man late in the game. And even then, it's not very useful. The only useful thing you get is that the power-up that allows you to have an unlimited clip that just allows you to fire everywhere. But since this game is built on RPG principles over shooter principles, so how the guns work is you have to aim it, and you can't just immediately fire once you have them in your sight. You have to let it set up and load up the aiming. And once it's aimed, you can take a precise shot. That also irked a lot of shooter fans, because I gave him a headshot and it missed, or he lived, and it's based on statistics more than it is based on, I got a headshot, he dead now. So
I think we can blame that one more on Sega, because apparently late in development they wanted more RPG elements in the game.
Okay, I didn't know exactly how that worked, but that was the big divide, because this game did get a lot of I think it was RPGgamer.com considered it one of the best games of the year that year. They were one of the few people who did, but they understood it was an RPG more than it was a shooter, and the people who saw it more as a espionage stealth shooter didn't. So, and that's another thing they brought up, that title. They brought up Deus Ex, Mass Effect, and Metal Gear Solid. We're going to combine it all and it's going to be amazing. But when it was more middle of the road in presentation, people just went and tossed it aside. I can tell you one personal story is that 2 weeks after this game came out, that they immediately sold it at a discount for $30. But the only place you could get it was Kmart. And as a person who worked at Kmart in the early 2000s, I can tell you that Kmart at that point was a fucking mess, and you were lucky if you found a Kmart that could have it. Because at that point, I went to it and their entire game department was a mess. So, they had the Shadowrun 360 game that was all online after all of the servers had been shut down. So
that Shadowrun game is just Shadowrun in name and had nothing to do.
It had nothing to do with it, except some people from the main people worked on it, but it was nothing. But so you couldn't buy it from most Kmarts if you wanted to because they didn't have it, or they didn't even have people who ran the electronics department because they had laid off so many people. So a lot of things were working against Alpha Protocol when it came out or was developed and all of that stuff.
And then of course Mass Effect 2 happened.
Yeah, and
that pretty much killed a lot of games.
So, but like the rush development, I can see in the electronics and how the guns, because there are clearly guns that were not made for this game. There are electronics where you can't set them up properly. There is a right way to play this game. Unfortunately, to the Deus Ex fans who are like, I want to do this my way, I want to customize them. You can't exactly do that here, unfortunately.
And in the original Deus Ex, you really couldn't do that much either, except like in body modification, even that was limited.
Okay, so
like if you go back and replay the original Deus Ex, a lot of the design elements you see in Alpha Protocol are pretty much taken from there, even down to not being very feasible to have a no-kill run, because the original Deus Ex was also not designed to have no-kill runs.
So most of the people
you can technically do it, but you have to just jank the shit out of the game to do it.
So most of the people who hype up Deus Ex to me are liars. Okay, that's because
Yes.
I played the PS2 port, and it's not a great port. Obviously, it's made to be a PC game, and I tried to play the PC, but the keyboard controls were hard for me. So
oh god, it made in an age where keyboard controls were just a mysterious thing no one understood.
Yeah.
There was no standards, no basic idea of how to control things. It was a disaster.
Yeah, that's my main problem with going back to early 2000s, late 90s PC games, is there is no standard for controls, so you have to bring up the control scheme before you play the game, and you have to memorize it. So
yeah,
back to Alpha Protocol.
I would say it's something worth looking into. I keep trying to get into it, but I get distracted by other stuff because I know getting into the original Deus Ex is going to be work, but I also know it's definitely going to be better than Deus Ex Human Revolution, which is fucking garbage. Really well designed garbage, but fucking garbage, and I hate the story so much, guys. Don't even get me started.
Oh, I won't.
I'm so mad that game became popular and this one didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm amazed everyone, in retrospect, I'm amazed everyone was surprised by all the cyborgs or black people now stuff in Mankind Divided. Because if you go back to Human Revolution, it's racist as shit. There are so many random thug archetypes in the game. It's Jesus Christ. It's not. Oh well, let's continue on with this good game here.
Yes.
that thankfully does not have any racist depictions of black people in it that I remember. Middle Eastern people probably,
Yeah.
but not as much.
And sometimes
not nearly as bad.
Sometimes Chinese and Taiwanese people, because you hear them talk and obviously their English is broken, but why are they talking to each other in English anyway?
So the dumb Americans can understand and don't have to read America.
Yeah. Which is weird because I just played NBA 2K19 and you start in a Chinese league and all the commentary is in Chinese, so you cannot understand what they're saying about you.
To be fair, that game was not made for gamers. It was made for people who enjoy sports, who are generally more well-rounded and intelligent, I've just come to discover. Unless they're into particular sports.
Yeah. But, let's see.
Like hockey.
So, at the beginning of Alpha Protocol, we should just get a thread here because we're not getting any thread. So, It shows you why it's kind of not the best introductory, because you go to Saudi. I mean, there's the tutorial level inside Alpha Protocol, which does a good enough job, and then you have the training missions where you meet your team and you get to learn the various things, and that's all fine. And
of course, you also get to learn about the dialogue system, which is one of the most brilliant parts of this game, because it's just the Mass Effect system, except they put in a timer, so now you can't just stay there forever. Mm-hmm. You have to actually commit to choices, and you don't get a lot of time to consider them.
And it's not good or bad. It's just you have, the professional or casual one, you have the playful one, and then you have the aggressive one. And then you have some other options if you are qualified to make them. Like if you play this on a veteran mode, which you get after beating the game a couple times.
In other words, Paragon, Renegade, Joker.
Yeah, something like that. But it's not, straight up that.
I do like you can actually. I do like you can do a variable approach, and the game accepts that as valid.
Yeah.
And it actually seems to encourage it, because you're not just role-playing with these choices, you're actively trying to manipulate people as thwarted, and not just the character trying to manipulate your character.
Mm-hmm. And
which is brilliant.
And you can be aggressive towards the asshat Leiland, and, that's appropriate. And then you can be aggressive to, like, Miss St. James, who comes in later, who is an innocent person, and that's not okay.
Yeah, she will actually tase you, which is great.
But
I'm slightly torn on this, because most of my notes is just written because of one issue I had with one part of the dialogue, which is, because when you mentioned that if you've, there's some situations where you can learn information prior to a conversation, and then in that conversation with a character, it'll be like, okay, do you want to be aggressive? Do you want to be professional? Do you want to be suave? Or do you want to take this fourth choice? And every time I was just like, I don't know, is the fourth choice good? And for the most part, the dialogue system is incredible, and it's great and really well carried out. But there's... Sorry, it's one of the, the Type A missions. It's when you're talking to this guy named Albatross, and he's the head of this other spy organisation, G22.
He's a giant nerd, and I love him.
Yep, and this was the one bit which made me think, okay, this is kind of like Metal Gear, but good, is that his bodyguard is like a mute 20-something punk rock looking woman who dual wields revolvers. And that's just amazing. And yeah, you have a fight with her in Moscow, and obviously I chose to spare her afterwards because I'm not a monster, and because she's the best character in the game. And then when you're talking to Albatross in Type A, then I had the option, hey, Albatross has just called you, would you like to ask about Sis? And I thought, yes, I would like to ask about Sis, because given that I've fought Sis but spared her life, and I have a positive relationship with both Sis and Albatross, obviously, asking about Sis means I'm going to be like, hey, how's Sis? Because she's good, and you're good, and everything's great. And instead I choose the Sis option, and Mike is just like, hey Albatross, where's your spastic bodyguard? Studying up for her kindergarten exams? And I'm just like, no! Mike, what are you doing, you
I
crazy
think that's
idiot?
the only example in the game where it does that. I didn't have problems, and it was usually the good option because it meant you had dossier information you could use.
Yeah. Hey Albatross, you really like hanging around with young women. You ever considered starting a gaming channel on YouTube?
Oh god.
But no, but you can't start a stream on Twitch, because on Twitch you shouldn't stream with women apparently if you make millions of dollars streaming video games.
Anyway, it's weird we're talking about the Albatross stuff, because I did the douchebag run, and for how dark you can get extremely dark with Albatross, because I did Moscow first, and I executed Sis instead of saving her, and I just did that because it was the setup. I was going to anybody who was going to be executed, I automatically had to execute them. So you do that, and you're automatically on Albatross' bad side, because he just does not want to have anything to do with you. But you will come back in contact with him a couple times, and you can rub it in that you murdered Sis. And by the end of the game, you are trying to get him to help. Rock flag and eagle! After you execute her, you get in contact with Albatross a whole bunch, and you can rub it in, and you get at the point where yeah, I keep this locket because it reminds me of the day I saw her, I conquered her, and I blew her brains out. And you are telling this to Albatross, and that is the only time I ever got a character to go to the negative level of animosity, which is the lowest you can get.
I was mostly a relatively nice person in the game, but I did look up, like, there were videos like Mike Thornton, arsehole secret agent.
Yeah.
And Mike Thornton, sarcastic secret agent. And watching him be aggressive, but he's mainly just a bit of a dickhead.
Yeah.
But then the sis stuff was the only part where, like, first off, executing her, I was just like, no, that's just not cool. I mean, yes, she just tried to shoot you, but still, she's fucking mute punk rock woman.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I just wanted to say,
watching
I did it just to see what would happen. I like Sis. I have never executed her willfully in any playthrough I did that wasn't to test something.
But yeah,
you never go full renegade.
No.
Never go full renegade.
In most of the video, it was just kind of funny that Mike was being a bit of a dick. And, you know, and there was also bits like, yeah, if you're a complete dick to Madison St. James, she'll just bash you on the head with a statue and then tase you. But then the bit where he's talking to Albatross and he's like, man, if I could blow out that bitch's brains again, I would. And I'm like, okay, that's not...
That
was like, if you get to that point in the game, then what you do is you start the next level and then you just throw a grenade at your feet. And then you're like, this is the best ending.
Yeah, Obsidian does this a lot, and it's like the one thing I'm a little iffy about them a lot, because when they have dark paths in their games, they don't shy away from the shit. If you've ever done the KOTOR 2 dark path, in the first KOTOR, it's just dumb. It's just you're the bad guy now, but it's better than the good path, because the good path requires you to be completely okay with getting brain wiped. Which, what the fuck, BioWare. But in KOTOR 2, you actively have to be a huge piece of shit to just everyone. I mean, sometimes you do get funny options, like using the Force to make a guy shit himself, which was one of the best moments in any video game ever. But your evil choices also affect the characters in your party, so they also start slowly going crazy, and at one point in development, if it had actually been finished properly, there would have been a point at the end of the game where all the characters in your party would have killed each other. Because they all hate the shit out of each other, and at a point in the story where you're gone to do your Sith Jedi thing, because you're not there being the uniting force for them, which is actually a plot point in that game, they went super meta with it. They're like, hey, we don't have to work with each other anymore, we can just kill each other. And then they do that. So yeah, Obsidian, when they have a bad path in these games, they go full, like in New Vegas, don't ally with Caesar or anyone in his legion, you fucking idiot. What the fuck did you think was gonna happen? Just everything bad happens possible. I do kind of appreciate the balls on them to just make these endings and make it clear that your character doesn't really get out of it well, except in this game, which is what bugs me about it. But we'll go into that in spoilers.
I think I just got really lucky on my first playthrough, because like the only thing stopping me from playing Alpha Protocol like 5 more times is knowing that if I did play it again, I wouldn't be experimenting and trying new things. I would play it almost exactly the same way again.
I'm kind of the same.
I would be stealthy. I'd save everyone.
I did my first run just going full professional because I wanted people to like me, even though some people still hated me anyways, but I just like being nice in video games. And then later on I tried being mostly aggressive and then mostly suave. And eventually I just started doing a variable approach and had more fun because I started picking up on what everyone responds to best. And one of my favorite things was discovering that in one of during the not Saudi Arabia missions, and when you're doing the one where you have to infiltrate that gunrunner base, if you do the aggressive choice on the guard instead of professional or suave, that's actually the best possible option. Because if you do professional, you get in, but they'll sound the alarm because they think something's up. If you do suave, they're just not going to trust your stupid ass. But if you do aggressive, they'll be so intimidated by you, but they don't pull the alarm at all. That's great. And there's just a lot of little moments like that where it surprises you with the possible outcomes. And then you start picking up on these characters are different from like Mass Effect characters, which are generally pretty simple. And in those games, Paragon and Renegade choices are mostly just a very, very half-baked attitude/morality thing, where you're just choosing how you want to approach a problem, and then maybe in the next game you'll see if that has any extra ramifications, and most of the time it doesn't. Some of the times it's minor. But with this game, all the ramifications happen in this game, and you're not worrying about the morality of your character, you're worrying about trying to manipulate people with your responses. So everyone has to react differently. Everyone likes something different. Everyone hates something different. You even get benefits from making certain your handlers hate you, which is really interesting. So like, there's just so much you can experiment with and get so many different outcomes. It's absolutely nuts. I think the only character who can't die in the entire game is Stephen Heck.
Stephen Heck.
The immortal fucking lunatic.
There is an ending with Stephen Heck too.
Oh yeah, I think it's the one. Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get to the spoiler section.
I did get that ending one by complete accident, and I was amazed.
I feel like it should be like a negative, that there's a lot of great content that you just won't see if you play the game a certain way, but it's not a negative because I don't think it is.
Yeah, because this is an RPG that's meant to be replayed multiple times. Even the Mass Effect games are designed that way. The part of the fun is seeing the stuff that changes if you change your approaches. And this goes especially for this game because I think this might be one of the most ambitious games when it comes to player choice of this size I have ever seen. The only time anyone's ever gotten this close is maybe when they went on to do New Vegas, but less so, and with their later return to the isometric RPGs with like Pillars of Eternity, because BioWare's approach is not really focusing on player choice so much as on how the player wants to express themselves, but this is very much about meaningful choice. Characters die, characters change, and characters, how they approach you, changes rapidly on what you do, and this even changes entire scenarios. Like an informant character in Moscow, what decides if he rats you out or not depends on how you talk to him, and it's actually a good thing if he does rat you out, which is interesting, though that is bugged, so sometimes it doesn't work properly, which is annoying. But yeah, there's just a lot of attention to detail I don't see from games of this size. It's absolutely nuts. So even though the gameplay is janky, I don't care at all, because that's not the impressive thing about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to go shoot, bang, bang. I want to see how these characters react to me, because they're just also well written and complex and interesting. Even the really simple ones at least have an interesting angle to them. Like the lady who's in charge of the veteran combat unit, I think it's called.
C?
Yeah, C is Jesus.
Yeah, like most women, if you approach them and you get mixed normal responses with flirty, they'll bump up on you. And C, that doesn't work.
You gotta be a complete piece of shit. And she's like, oh.
Michael Darling. And she is voiced by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who you might remember is the person who sings all of the Silent Hill songs.
Oh my god, I did not know that.
Yep.
I like if you end up getting her scene towards the end of the game. It's the most fucked up thing.
Yeah, we'll get to spoilers, but that also changed how they respond to you on what the hell happens in that scene.
I should point out that the character does comment on that scene after it happens later.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, what are those scratches on the back of your neck?
Yeah, there's
nothing.
Also another response.
They tortured me or something while I was, that's it.
There's also a response from if a character doesn't like you enough, they'll say, oh god, it smells like kitty litter in there. Or it's got to smell like kitty litter or something really weird when the intercom turns on.
That's great.
Anyway, we'll go back to the start. So you go through Saudi Arabia, which isn't the most beginner friendly, because I remember starting the bugging the airfield quest, and it kind of has everything a little bit of everything, which would be nice in the game, but your character isn't developed to handle it, so you'll just wind up getting in trouble a lot. And
I do appreciate that they don't list it as one as they have the missions in certain order, and I don't remember that being the first one on the list.
Okay,
so I just went in order.
Oh, I remember it being the first one on the list, but
I could have sworn it was the one where you're getting the arms dealer.
Okay, maybe it was, but I always remember doing the bug the airfield quest first, so in my mind it's linear, so but you do that and it's a little bit of everything, and it's kind of hard because there are alarm traps aplenty in there, and there are elite soldiers in there, and there are things that's there are paths where you have to take a zip line down, and then that everybody will see you coming down, fire the alarm, and you will be surrounded. And it's not the beginner friendly, but like you said, you don't have to take that. You can take that in however order, or if you get to a certain point, you can even skip certain missions, because they'll let you get to the story important mission, and you can just skip on, and you'll have one or two left that you don't have to do, but mostly you want to do them, because otherwise you will be missing on information, or you'll miss this option that you have that makes it easier.
Yeah, and of course experience and money, which you have to get on missions because you don't really get official funds due to what Alpha Protocol is, and of course you being a rogue agent later on, so you have to take what you can from the environment, which incidentally is something that Mass Effect 2 ended up doing.
And also, you have to get into contact with people, so missions mean more contact with people to be able to buy weapons, because you have to have people who are willing to sell you them, which is what I found out in my execution run, that it took me until the second spot in the world after Saudi Arabia for anybody to sell me, because after Moscow, nobody wanted to sell me shit because I was just killing everyone. So, you need to at least be nice with somebody to be able to get the better weaponry in the game. In the Saudi Arabia, you eventually get to Said, and you fight a couple boss fights, and after which
you kill Metal Gear.
What?
The big tank.
Yeah, the big tank Metal Gear, and then you find out that, okay, after you can have a choice to execute him or not, and regardless of whether you don't, missiles come flying in at your location to clean up the area, and you survive it, and eventually you wake up to your handler Mina, trying to make sure you're awake and okay, and it's you're rogue now because this was to clean up, and you have to go rogue.
She's confused. She was confused by it because it just kind of happened out of nowhere. She was not informed on it.
Mm-hmm. So then you have to figure out who's doing this, why they did it to you, and you have to follow
It's Henry Leiland.
Oh yeah, it's the guy who looks like the obvious villain and the evil company. Yeah.
Who talks to you throughout the entire game.
Mm-hmm. And who seems to be quietly in control of certain things.
Actually, you find out right away it is him.
Yeah. Because
right after all that's done, if you get the files from how am I blanking on his name? We were just talking
Shahid?
about him. Yeah, Shahid. If you get the files from Shahid, you find out right away that, oh yeah, Halbeck's doing the dumb shit.
Yeah. And Shahid pretty much outright tells you Halbeck is doing bad shit. And then you have
You
to
gotta stop it.
Yeah, you have to stop it because
Stop America. Finally,
Yes.
a game I can get behind.
So you can handle the missions any way you like it, and as Elmo found out, you can even take a break when you go to a country. You can take a break from that country and go somewhere else and do something, which I have never done before because, like I said,
I have never done that either.
Yeah, because
that is stupid.
know.
Stupid. That is something a British person would do. The dumbest people on the earth.
I didn't want to do it, and then I kind of looked up something like, "Hey, it looks like you're about to."
Yeah.
What is it? Assault Braco's mansion or whatever. There's a boss fight with a dude named Braco. It's the hardest boss fight in the entire game.
Your pie is disgusting.
But if you've made contact with the guy in Taipei,
Stephen
he will
Heck.
spike.
You
Stephen
name
Heck.
him every time. He's wonderful.
Yeah, he will. Don't call him Steve. He will spike Braco's cocaine.
By the way, he does the "don't call me Steven" half the time, and the other half he'll call "don't call me Heck." So he is inconsistent about that. So
I also like that he's very inconsistent about what he likes, because sometimes he'll like the aggressive approach because you'll be torturing someone like, hey, let me give you some torturing tips. Like, okay. And other times you just got to be suave.
yeah, I mean, if you're aggressive towards him, he doesn't like that.
Yeah, I like there's nuances in the dialogue system where you have to pay attention to context. You can't just go, okay, just use this one type every time. Like, you can do that with, like, Restridge and Darcy, but you can't at the beginning, but you can't really... I don't remember it working so well on Parker.
Parker
I found out
just
some
likes
interesting
professionalism, that's it.
things when you
It's one of them that had different responses sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't remember which one. Maybe Mina.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I played like the aggressive asshole, and Westridge's net was actually a gain. He actually liked me more because, like, you're getting down to business. I like this, and Parker was actually net neutral because he didn't like my arrogance. He didn't like all the fussing, but he did like that I was getting down to business too. So it's very weird. It doesn't turn out like you expect it to. I mean, Darcy's Darcy, and fuck that guy. It should be noted.
First time I played him, I actually did get on his good side, or at least I tried to get on his good side, and later found out how to get on his good side. And it kind of sucks that he's like one of the few characters where nothing really changes if you get different relationship values with him.
No, but he is kind of he's the son of a senator, so he has a silver spoon in his mouth.
A Republican senator.
Yeah. And he has a chip on his shoulder about it, and he tries to do all this stuff to get field work, and he can't do it because his senator father gets in the way. And, that's kind of... I guess that's understandable why he would have a chip on his shoulder, but I still don't like him. But
also, I'm pretty sure he has a small dick and is jealous of your big dick.
Yeah, he's also a serial sexual harasser towards Mina, so fuck that guy.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Stephen
Heck.
If I was going to play the game again, I think I actually would switch back and forth even more.
Yeah.
From mission hubs, just because the first time you get out into the real game, where, let's say that Saudi Arabia is the prologue or something, the first time you get into a boss fight, you are so fucked.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big negatives I'd say that the game has. It's just that, the moment when I nearly gave up was the Marburg fight in Rome, just because I was all stealth, I had a little bit in martial arts and tech
you were
and gadgets, and it's just hey, shoot this guy with an assault rifle.
Tips for anyone who wants to pick up this game and you do a stealth build: invest in pistol as much as you possibly can while focusing on stealth and, of course, unlocking stuff. And do Taipei first, so you get the Omen Dang fight, which is very manageable as stealth because he's not constantly on your ass shooting everything.
Also,
and then you're free to choose whichever one you want because you have Stephen Heck at that point, so that does help out with the Moscow boss fight.
Yeah, we should talk about Stephen Heck probably since we've been dancing around. So when you go into Taipei, you have there's an informant you can talk to named Stephen Heck, but everybody you talk to about him is like, we're not. He says he's with people, but none of our people we have ever heard of him. So when you go to meet him, he is torturing who he calls his friend. I don't ever get what he actually is. His name's Wen, but has him
the man who killed Ronald's son.
Yeah, later. But he has duct tape to his lips, and Heck is threatening to shove bleach down his throat and doing all this torture. You can encourage him, or you can stop, and then Stephen Heck will hate you a little bit. But at the end, you'll figure out what he's trying to get, and he's trying to figure out where his car keys are. So that's your.
And it was in the bowl.
It was in the bowl candy jar.
It always is.
Yeah. But I don't even eat candy. It makes me nuts. Oh, the candy jar. And that's your introduction to Stephen Heck, who is this looks like a guy who would be on Jackass. And
in the last mission of the game, you can choose one of the 3 factions you've met throughout the game to help you. It can either be G22 with Albatross and his friends. It can be C, and if you got the relationships high enough, the thing happens.
Yeah.
And the 3rd faction is Stephen Heck. And he just comes in and makes everything explode and just starts beating up people with bats. Like, people with very high-tech gun weaponry. He's just coming at them with bats and Molotov cocktails, and it's amazing. I just love that he's just this ridiculous cartoon character who exists in this otherwise realistic universe, and nobody can do anything about it. And I like that it's even within continuity, as they explained it, that he's literally so confusing to people that they don't know how to deal with him when they first see him, and they don't get a second chance because he acts so fast. That's great.
There were lots of times when he would get into there's the mission where he helps you out in the hotel, and you're like, Stephen, no casualties. And he gets this sad puppy dog look and goes, okay. And then when you get downstairs and when he's causing you a distraction, you just hear him go, hey, can you look at this for a second? And then you just hear a massive explosion. And then you're like, Stephen, and he's like, what? I tried. It's not my fault. And while I was stealthing around trying to unlock the safes and hack all the laptops, then you could just hear in the background Stephen fighting people, and he would just be like, oh, he's gonna feel that tomorrow. Oh, I know he's not. He's dead. Oh, Stephen.
I'm wondering if you could.
And of course, he's voiced by Nolan North.
I mean, you've had moments where you just want to replay the game. Now I want to replay the game and see if you can do the hotel without meeting Stephen Heck and see what that changes. I mean,
it'd probably be way more boring.
I'm sure it would be way more boring in a standard mission, but it's just, it's. I just wanted to know if you could do that. I'm sure you can.
But why? Why would you ever
exactly,
do that?
Which is why I've never done it.
You go to Taipei first, you meet Stephen Heck first thing, and then you are set the rest of the game.
I usually go
who would win
Moscow first and meet at C.
I don't like go. I think the first time I played the game, I went in order of missions as they appeared, so I ended up doing Taipei last, which I severely regretted after meeting Stephen Heck.
Yeah, and then, I'd played it, I was feeding you stuff, and it was like, oh, hey, did you know you can spike Braco's cocaine?
Who would win in a fight between Stephen Heck and Marburg?
Or Stephen Heck and Braco.
Stephen Heck. He's literally he's literally invincible. No one in the game cannot has any sort of power against him. He's like the Mr. Misclicks of this universe. No one can do anything about him.
I forgot.
He
about
just happens
Draco
to be a giant conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
This was before conspiracy theorists all became Nazis, I should specify. Though there is one weird, troubling email where, for some reason, whoever was writing the emails for this game thought it was a good idea to put in a Zionist line in his email.
The World Bank and...
Yeah, it's weird because he's not at all like that throughout the rest of the game. I think they were just... it's like a completely different writer, I'm sure. The emails read very differently from how the characters actually sound in the game. It's strange.
Yeah.
Like, there's a real disconnect between the two, people writing the emails and the people writing the main script. Though I do like that you can respond to Steven's emails with Suave and just do increasingly stupid shit too. And then he responds back like, oh my god, you get it. And of course, there's random all caps in places and a giant run-on sentences. That's good.
I think there are
like
some
that.
typos.
Oh, of course there are.
I forgot all about Draco, and like he has just. It's not.
He comes out to. What was that song?
Turn Up the Radio by Autograph. And it's important that it's
Yes.
Autograph because Autograph are former Russians. They even made a
Video
joke
killed
about
the
it
radio
on
star.
a Wayne's World skit where they're talking about the reasons why we're bummed communism fell. Like, one of the reasons is no former Soviet rock bands. I mean, Autograph, I quite liked them. Yet. But it is... the boss fight with Turn Up the Radio is, like... I think it's the best boss fight in the game, but it's just... Because it comes the hell out of nowhere. And it is...
The presentation, the boss fight is the best in the game, but the actual boss fight is...
It is...
No.
It is balls hard unless you do something to calm him down or spike his heroin or cocaine or... Yeah, cocaine. So...
Cocaine.
Yep. But it's really... Because Braco is this 20-something guy who came up through the crime syndicates in Russia by
He
literally...
believes heavily in Reaganomics.
And also pimping his sisters. It's in his file. So he's kind of a piece of shit youngin' who loves the 80s, and like he has even decor in his house is like 80s Art Deco, and it's tacky as fuck. But and he has a video arcade that of course has 80s games, but they're fake 80s games. Like there's one called Gulag. So you get up to the boss fight, and it's this, very 80s disco, and then Turn Up the Radio starts playing, and then he starts snorting cocaine and charging at you with his knife, and also he has henchmen, and also has gold-plated SMGs that he uses, and he's a lot better at it than you will ever be with SMGs. It's a really jarring fight. I kind of love it, and it kind of makes me love that song too, although I think the song is the reason why it's being pulled. So if they cut it out, there's going to be a lot missing from that.
Hopefully Sega will be cool and pull a Microsoft and actually pay for the licensing.
I don't think
But
they
it's Sega,
will.
so... It's just one song, though, for like a fucking Russian rock band. It can't be that expensive.
There are things...
It's not like they're trying to license Fly Me to the Moon.
But that's a subject for
Topical.
another podcast. I'm not getting into the Ava unless you pay me. So...
Like how if you leave Draco alive, then you have the option to take him on the next mission. And if you do, then... it's another one of those things where it's really cool to look this stuff up, but again, if I played the game, I would probably never do it.
I actually did do that, and the end result was hilarious.
Yeah.
And fucked
I
up.
would never do the situation which would get Marburg to attack you, but it's still one of the best scenes in the game. But the bit with Draco, it's how there's a boss fight against this guy's personal bodyguard, and and it's in this very tight corridor, and the only way I could beat him was by doing chain shot and shooting him 3 times in the head, and then using the power that resets all of your other powers, so I could use chain shot again and shoot him 3 times in the head. And that was just enough to knock him out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he is a joke if you have a gun.
Yeah.
And then if you bring along Draco, then all that happens is the bad guy is like, bodyguard, come out, and then Draco just comes out instead, and the bodyguard suddenly goes, oh, that guy? Oh, he's gone. I give him 7.5 in dying.
The thing is, if there's a major part of the script that gets skipped if you're not good enough friends with Braco and spare him. Like, there will be a part of the game that just skips over. Like, there's something else going on underneath Moscow that you don't know about and you can't figure out unless Braco likes you and you spare him, which is the toughest thing because I need to look it up, but if you...
I think you have to go all suave on him.
Yeah, you have to go all suave. If you go aggressive, he doesn't like you. If you go casual, he's like, who the fuck are you? And if you just attack him, then, well, it's just attacking him. He's like, he doesn't deal with...
I haven't heard of this other thing. What does he tell you?
The other thing, which other thing? Just like...
Yeah, the thing that happens if you get high friendship value with him.
You figure out that somebody else is actually running the guns for Halbeck behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, I got that.
Yeah, that's what you find out. Yeah. So,
that does help explain how am I first ending the thing when it's doing the roundup and the news roundup of all the things that happened because of my actions, why that one bad thing happened.
Yeah, and the thing with the news roundup at the end is like you have to be very careful who you kill as far as civilians because otherwise there are like huge spots missing from the game that they don't cover at the end. But if you accidentally kill a Marine at the Russian consulate, yeah, you will.
Or stealth in.
Yeah, I knocked out...
Because the game's bugged.
I knocked out the Marine that's by the roof at that mission, and they said I killed him. And I didn't fucking kill him. I knocked him out because he was standing at the door for 2 minutes and he would not move. And I needed to get inside. So I'm just like...
I pretty much stealth perfectly, but there's a bug in the game if you do that approach a certain way that it interprets this as, oh, you fought them.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait, I think it's because... Or is when they see you at the front gate, I forget, but...
Yeah,
it's an annoying bug.
Yeah, I knocked out the Marine by the entrance to the rooftop. I have never gone in through the front... I've gone in through the front door once, and that was like my asshole run through. But, yeah, because that guard will stick there for 2 minutes, and he will not move. I don't know if that's bugged up, probably is, but... So I snuck up behind him and knocked him out.
Yeah, I've never encountered that.
Yeah, and then at the end of the game it says, police are still searching for the person who murdered a Marine at this Russian, consulate, and blah, blah, blah. And that's like, I didn't murder him!
Oh, hang on. This is just me, but hey, that's shitty theory. I'm sorry. But one of the cool things about G22 is that throughout the conversations with Leiland, it becomes apparent that he has no idea who they are or that they exist.
Oh, yeah.
And in that level, I didn't use the support of G22. I had C. Mm-hmm. And G22 launch an unrelated assault on the building.
Yeah, that's...
at the same time, is it possible that, like, the news is saying, oh, we're looking for someone who murdered a Marine, and it was like... Because the G22 people, they come in with guns, and they're taking people out.
No, the guys who come with guns are the Veteran Combat Initiative.
Yeah, and I've done it with G22, and
I do it with G22 all the time.
Nothing pops up. I mean, I do...
Why would I ever pick anyone but G22? Other than to hear the Fendom lady hum classical music as she's killing people.
Yeah, she's humming Ride of the Valkyrie, I believe. And the thing is,
I
thought C was Russian. She's Eastern German. She was a member of Stasi before the Berlin Wall fell. So she is technically East German, which explains why she has a touch of Russian in her accent.
That's a nice attention to detail.
Yep.
There's a lot of that in this game.
Yep. And
I like that they actually cut features when they were developing this, because you have to do that, or else you end up with haze.
Mm-hmm.
The game where Ubisoft was like, when they're at the development phase where they had to cut features so the game played well, Ubisoft was like, no, you have to be able to play dead to fool the AI, a thing no one will ever do.
Yeah,
video games.
Yeah, pressuring for features when it's above and beyond what you can do. It hurts everybody, from Ubisoft to the people who made Barkley 2, because I could tell they wanted to make 16-bit Borderlands, and they didn't want to make 16-bit Borderlands. 'Cause they wanted to make 16-bit Borderlands. 'Cause they, I could tell they wanted to make 16-bit Borderlands. 'Cause they wanted to make 16-bit Borderlands. 'Cause they wanted to make 16-bit Borderlands. 'Cause they, I could tell they wanted to make And they did not have the money to do that, so they just fucked up. And now we don't have Barkley 2, likely, or have it in any position. There's my Barkley rant, too. I'm sorry I missed it, so I'll just...
At least we can all play Mass Effect forever.
Yeah, except my 360 disc, like, has this thing where it is clean, but it says it is dirty and stops, like, right at the beginning of the game, right after character creation, before it saves a character, so... Yeah, so I have to like rebuy the trilogy one day.
I think it's pretty cheap now, at least.
Yeah, it's very reasonable. Hopefully, it all comes with the DLC because EA is. What's up?
I can't say for 3 that they actually had a deal for 3 where I could get all the DLC for and the game for just $30, which I thought was very affordable because there's a fucking lot of DLC in Mass Effect 3.
And the thing is, if
a lot of it's really good.
Don't get a package with the DLC, they still price gouge you for the DLC. You can still pay $10 to $20 for DLC from Mass Effect 1 from 10 years ago. Because EA.
Oh no, the Mass Effect 1 DLC is free.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's free on PC. You can just download it. You can download Bring Down the Sky for free, and they made the Pinnacle Station 1 free after I first played it, but I don't care because that DLC is a piece of shit.
Yeah. But it's the last time I checked, before they gave away everything for free, the DLC was $10 to $20, and they did not bring it down ever. So unless you get Unless you got the package deals, sometimes EA will price gouge you, and they will if they
What's fun about Mass Effect 2's DLC is that the stuff you still have to pay for, which I'm not sure is a lot anymore, you can just download off the internet and then use a DLC unlocker that's widely available.
Anyway.
Mass Effect 3, you do have to buy it, but at least it's affordable in that joint package.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Alpha Protocol.
I think we should move towards endgame stuff for two very important
Unless
reasons.
we want to talk about Rome a bit. Rome's kind of the little brother of the whole thing because you don't have Stephen Heck, you don't have Braco. It's a very pretty area you go through.
But you do have Marburg.
You do have Marburg, where...
I'm going to be honest, he's probably my favorite character after Stephen Heck.
Okay.
And that's mainly because I got the speech where I call him a piece of shit and go on for like a minute why, and it makes him so mad that he wants to strangle me.
Yeah. It's
and he does the high-pitched Jim Cummings voice and sounds briefly like Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah. The only problem is, like, now, is that he looks like Mike Pence, and he is a gay character, which is,
The Mike Pence thing was definitely not...
It was not intended. No, it was not intended at all. Mike Pence was not on anybody's radar in 2009. I can guarantee you that. It's just...
I like that Marburg is a particularly weird type of gay because he's a massive objectivist. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it. So, like, there's some weird shit going on up in that brain and what he thinks is hot.
Yeah. But mostly what you see is just he has Roman statues of naked guys in his apartment. And
objectivism.
Yeah.
That's an objectivism
thing.
thing.
Atlas Shrugged. That shit. But
Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle, Spider-Man.
Although it kind of cringes depending on your relationship with Mina and how you get along. Sometimes when you see the statues and it's just like... They will sometimes, like, snark about his homosexuality, which is, It's kind of iffy, but it's one little exchange in the entire game. The rest is just it. What's up?
I think the joke was more about how he expresses it because, I mean, look at the dude's decor.
Yeah,
that's a little.
It's a little much.
But yeah,
and it
doesn't come across that way like it should.
He also has a big painting of himself.
Well, I mean, who doesn't?
But, yeah, it's here where you meet Madison St. James, and she's like a person who works for VCI, but she's a newbie employee, and she's trying to find you and doing a terrible job at it because you can easily track her every move. So you get into contact with her and try to use her against VCI to figure out what there's terrorism going on in Rome, and you've got to figure out what. and you've got to figure out who's doing it. And like if you're friends with Shahid, they're like, I'm not doing anything here. Somebody else is moving this. And so you're going through piece by piece, and you get Madison to help with VCI to find that, VCI is doing some weird shit. But eventually they figure out, what's going on with Madison. And so you have the choice at the end of that. But I think that's another end game thing. But it's everything in Rome is pretty straightforward questing, except for the not the CIA listening post, but the NSA echelon post.
Marburg is the top.
But
I'm just gonna say it. We're all thinking it.
Okay. Oh, he definitely is. I'm not gonna argue that. He is very much. It's weird how he
a very needy top.
A very needy top, but he's also a top that can take orders from somebody else, because obviously he takes orders from Leiland and Halbeck. But so he has become a stooge, but he still is not convinced in his own mind that's what's going on here. So you have to as long as you say the right things and you're not an asshole, you're okay. But there are some things where if you want to get on his really good side, that it's very weird to try to do that.
You can just go all professional.
All professional usually does it, and not behaving like
we were literally best friends on my first playthrough,
and not behaving like a brain jackass in all of your missions and killing a lot of people and being cited a lot, because there are times when how you play the game does come up in your conversations. You will occasionally get emails when you start the game and you get the Saudi mission with Darcy. He will you killed a lot of people on that mission. Best not try to do that. And there are some people. And C will be like, Michael, I like your approach. And, people will react to that. And Marburg is mostly...
C is also a top.
Yes, literally. It is in text. We'll discuss that. But, but the one thing I wanted to talk about in the Rome is the weird NSA... computer system mission that you go into that's a curveball.
Gelato Man.
The Gelato Man. So there is a NSA listening system, and it's in a gelato shop, and you go in there and it's empty except everything is trash and it would not pass a health inspector. So there's nobody there, and there's something wrong here. So you go up and you have a passcode which you're going to give to this guy to tell, hey, I'm the guy who's going to fix your computers. But you're not going to fix the computers. You're going to put a bug in there. But instead, this guy with a beard and just he is literally scratching his head with the cones, and it's disgusting as fuck. And it's he's not responding to your passcodes correctly, and you don't know what the deal is. And you can either just straight up execute him and do your job, or you can try to go along, or you can try. I don't know if I ever got the full extent to what was going on. I'm guessing they just gave a shitty man a gelato shop because nobody would go in there and nobody would suspect, and they just ran it out of there because nobody would be by and nobody would care. That's my best guess.
But at the end of the thing, he gives you the cones hey,
here's a cone, and it's you don't want to eat that cone.
No, I mean, the way he says it, he's he probably knows what's up. He's just fucking with you.
Yeah.
And that would explain why in the veteran one, when you start, you briefly hallucinate. I don't think it's an hallucination. I think that he's in the feed before you talk with Mina.
Okay.
So I think the game's just kind of hinting that he's the real mastermind the entire time.
Yeah.
Or just some other spy doing his own thing, but what he's doing and what you're doing doesn't really interfere with him, so he just goes along with it.
Yeah, it's an interesting...
Or maybe there's no explanation, they just wanted something weird.
Yeah, it's a weird curveball, which is why I thought I'd bring it up. But because otherwise Rome is just kind of a boring thing where it proceeds about as you'd expect. And it had some interesting quests, but they're mostly straightforward, which
It's also like the first time the dossiers really become important, because that impacts heavily how Marburg approaches you.
Yeah.
Because if you go out of your way to just collect no information on him and literally try to avoid any at all, when he encounters you and you have no idea who he is, he's so fucking mad.
Yeah.
And this is the key to getting that speech at the end of Rome, where he stays for his boss fight and you get to kill him right there. And that's great.
So, anyway, now that we've got Rome out of the way, should we go to Endgame now?
Let's just get into spoilers.
Sure.
Okay, I want to spoil how each of the three areas ends as well, because I think it's kind of important, because we barely even mentioned what's really going on in Taipei, for one. Mm-hmm. So the Taipei thing is figuring out what Halbeck's doing there, and it turns out it's an assassination of the president, Ronald Sung. And you can either get, and because drive you get is bugged, you can only get one piece of information. It's either to prove the assassination attempt or the riots that are going to be sparked during the rally, which will lead to a lot of mass death, and that will affect, and what evidence you get affects what Ronald Sung's precautions are, because he won't believe the other thing. Mm-hmm. And this radically changes the outcome. The assassin doesn't turn out to be Omen Deng, like the leader of the Chinese secret police. He was a double agent working for Ronald Sung, and you can figure this out by collecting enough dossier information on him.
Yeah.
This is his secret fact, and you can even avoid executing him because you realize with that dossier information who he is. And you later find out towards the end of the game it was actually Scarlet who was the assassin.
Yeah, and there are paths you can take where you may not figure out what Scarlet rules in this game is at all, because Scarlet is just this journalist who hangs, and sometimes you give information, and she strangely hangs out with you a lot, and at first you think it's because you're a source and you're giving her a lot of information, but later you find out,
and also she's a world traveler.
Yeah, a world traveler who just happens to show up in a lot of the same places you do. So it's later you figure out it's not really so much of a coincidence. You don't even figure that out if at the end you decide to execute the last boss yourself.
Oh, if memory serves, that if I managed to get, one time I managed to get Marburg away, I had Stephen Heck with me, and I had actually read the map wrong, so I completely missed the area where you meet Scarlet. Mm-hmm. So she appeared at the end as the bodyguard, and shot me, and I was gonna die or have a boss fight, but then Stephen Heck just snuck in quietly like a fucking Elmer Fudd, even doing the little whisper thing, and just, I think he got a shotgun blaster or he used a bat or something.
Yeah, it was
wow.
That's one of the little things about that ending that they're not. The thing about you have to understand about the ending is there's no big thing that changes everything, except maybe one or two things, but there are a lot of little things that changes small things, like who you fight as the last boss. Do you execute the last boss after you defeat them, or do you decide to spare them? And when you spare them, what happens? And when they reveal what Scarlet is, does she help you?
Forgive her or not?
If you were friends with her or you fucked her, she helps you, and if she really doesn't like you, then your handler comes out, like takes care of her. And if you don't have a handler, I can't remember, but there's a default position where something else. She decides no matter how much she hates you, she kills the last guy anyway.
Oh yeah, like pretty much all the Halbeck people suck ass.
Yeah.
Huge ass suckers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Of course, the Rome, you have to decide when Marburg initiates it to either save a building full of people at the museum, or save Madison because he has planted 2 bombs and you only have enough time to disarm 1. And he does stay true to this. And it turns out that saving Madison and not the greater number of people is the better call, because if Madison dies, she becomes a martyr for racist causes to crack down on immigrants.
Yeah.
And if Madison lives, she actually actively fights against legislation for this, which caught me off guard.
Yeah, it's
wow.
One of those curveballs. And the weird thing is,
that's very Obsidian of you.
Yeah, and the stakes are not what you'd expect for like a AAA game, because normally they would be like, oh, there's this massive event opening here and there are thousands of people at the museum. You have to choose between that. Nope, it's a normal day and there's about 30 people in there who die.
But it also works because of the realistic setting.
Yeah.
There's you have a sense of grounding. You don't need everything world built for you like Mass Effect has to do. You just know right away, oh, that's really, really bad, and you can kind of imagine that happening in real life and how horrifying that is.
Yeah.
And that's also what makes the Ronald Sung assassination thing a big deal, because you can already start seeing in your head the possible outcomes of the leader of a country getting assassinated, but also see the outcomes of those mass protests going wild. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's Russia, where there's no such stakes, and you're just dealing with a crazy mafia dude and a really smart mafia dude who's basically just Henry Leiland with a brain.
Yeah.
Sergei Surikov is an asshole.
Yep.
And it's amazing on my first playthrough, even though after I knew that he did kind of trick me a little, I pretty much spared everyone on my first playthrough because I wanted to be everyone's friend. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I just went along with his deal and did not realize I just helped put in power probably the single biggest piece of shit in this game. Mm-hmm. That dude is smart. He's a proper capitalist. He just lays low and just takes opportunities.
And there's some playthroughs where you'll never realize it at all. They'll just end, you'll apprehend Braco and you can either let him go or do whatever. And then Leland will have a little speech that's like, yes, that will hurt us for quite some time. And you can sense some sarcasm in his voice, but you're not quite sure what the sarcasm is unless you played through it and figured out.
You really have to dig to figure out what Sergei's up to. I do like that you can fight his bodyguard, Olympic champion boxer, I think, and just chain shot him to death instantly.
Yep. Or you can just get Braco, who will just rip him apart.
As we mentioned before.
Yep.
Yeah, the way the Moscow chapter ends is pretty fun, even if it doesn't really feel like it has stakes for a lot of it, and it's mostly just seeing guys in jumpsuits with shotguns get mowed down by East German woman. Oh, those crazy Russians.
Yep.
Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen.
Okay.
That was a great song. I'm sorry, it's 5 a.m. and I'm completely losing
It's
it.
alright.
Don't worry, we're going to wrap up. And of course, the last mission is at Alpha Protocol, and I was really impressed by just how much my decisions impacted things, especially with Parker. There are so many ways things with him can go. It turns out that Madison is his daughter. Mm-hmm. And that does impact your meeting with him, but not in the ways you expect, because, Parker is a weird asshole who's, in charge of destabilizing governments around the world for U.S. interest. Mm-hmm. but he does have a moral code and respect for like knowledge and all that. So if you play to that aspect of him, he can actually see the truth and betray Halvik in different ways.
Yeah,
which is really interesting.
And one of the interesting ways is that you can fuck him over by saying your plan didn't work. This guy's alive, and this you didn't get this because I stopped it. And then he's like, "Oh shit!" And then then the wheels start turning, and then you realize, "Oh, this is gonna get bad." So then he helps you, but then there are cases where you have to kill him because he's wiping all of the data. So. And
then there are the cases where he shoots Marburg. Apparently. I've never seen
that. He doesn't shoot him, but that was my favourite little endgame thing. Because if you get 100% of the intel on Madison St. James and romance her, she will reveal, oh, by the way, crazy coincidence, Alan Parker, your former analyst/handler, is my dad. And then, when you're breaking into Alpha Protocol, you have the option to communicate with Parker, and it's just such a great conversation because, it would be really interesting to see all the ways in which you can persuade him that he's wrong, because he respects it if you're able to just say, here is the evidence for why your plan is not going to work, and if it does work, it's not going to start a Cold War, it's going to start a war. But I just went in there and was like, hey, you know that daughter you have? And he's like, oh, this is low, this is bluffing, even for you. And you're just like, Madison St. James. She took her mother's surname, I think you know why. Marburg tried to murder her. I saved her. I chose her over the bombs. Or alternatively, if you didn't choose her, you can be like, she's dead because Marburg killed her. And it's just great that it's just a great contrast in that how Parker, he's quite a powerful person. He's a very experienced analyst, but at the same time, Mike could probably take him in a fist fight.
Yeah. Oh, you can.
Whereas
it's very
easy. Whereas Marburg is very much the, hey, I'm the very smart evil villain, but at the same time, I'm completely capable of destroying you in combat. And it was just this. That's probably just my favourite scene of the game, and I just loved getting it where Parker's Marburg, since it's impossible for him not to love you if you play the game relatively well and don't go around just shooting everyone, then I was able to just say, hey, Marburg, leave me alone, and he was just happy to leave. But he just shows up in Parker's office just going, Parker, we need to leave, what are you doing? And Parker just says suspiciously, I'm just checking some things about the Rome mission. Hey, do you want to maybe log on to that computer beside you? I really need 2 people for this. And Marburg is like, what? Okay, sure, fine, I guess. And Parker just turns up with a gun. He's like, so, you tried to murder my daughter? And Marburg is like, let's take a little step back, shall we? And then an alarm goes off and Parker gets distracted, and so Marburg stabs him and Parker shoots him at the same time. And there's this amazing moment where Marburg is just wounded and he's about to have another little boss fight with you, but he just goes, how could anyone have known? And what are the odds that Madison St. James would... And then he gets this amazing look on his face and goes Thornton. Thornton told him. And the fact that he's just been shot means that the following boss fight is much easier.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Also,
yeah,
there is a little hint early in the game that Madison is in some way related to Parker because she works at the exact same console that Parker did when he was spying for Alpha Protocol at VCI, and it's just it's not, a lot of people work at the same thing. It could be coincidence, but it's a nice little hint.
I'm not sure if this is sleep deprivation, and I don't mean you're making me stay up late to talk about a video game that I really enjoy, so thanks. But I mean that I remember reading this somewhere, and I can't remember if I literally just had a dream, and in the dream I was scrolling through TV tropes reading about Alpha Protocol. But I remember seeing somewhere that Parker was the handler for the mission in Rome that Marburg was... No, for the mission in, like, South... In what... The mission that Marburg was on that went bad, and then he had to go kind of rogue,
I believe it was.
Stop Deus Vult. And it's possible to tell Marburg this, and that confrontation is different, because Marburg gets really angry at Parker, because he's like, so basically you're the reason why I was kicked out and my life fell apart. But I haven't been able to find any footage of that, and looking it up again has been like, I can't find anything. So I genuinely don't know, is that a real thing in this game, or did I just dream some backstory?
I would not be surprised if it is real.
The only issue is that I got 100% of the intel on Marburg and Parker, and it didn't mention it. And so
Yeah, I haven't seen it myself, but then again, didn't do a lot of Marburg, so when you guys talk about Marburg, it's like, oh, that's interesting, I've done that.
There's just so many possibilities in this game. It is absolutely insane. Even for the smallest characters, there's so many possible outcomes. Even the guy in Taipei, the Triad guy, what was his name?
Mr. Hong.
Hong Shi?
No, what is his name?
Hong Shi.
No, his real name.
Oh. Like,
his character. Yeah.
Are you talking about the
That was
character
his real
who's
name.
the mafia boss, played by character actor James Hong?
Yes, James Hong.
Yeah.
That's the character.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is funny, because I have the line saved where it's like, please don't call me Mr. Hong. I'm like, but that's your name.
In both respects.
Yeah.
Yeah, even he gets affected by your actions in surprising ways. Not just the fact that he can pull support from you in the like last mission of Taipei if you blackmail him or just generally a dick, but also your actions end up destabilizing his triad, and this is something Leiland mentions, which that's a nice touch.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of nice touches. They actually put thought into what happens to every character and how they all connect, and that is not something BioWare is good at.
If you're rude to him, but you still have him over a barrel, he works with you, but you figure out he has very bad opinions on women. Like, Mr. Hong, like, thinks all women are whores, and he talks about them as such. It's one of the weirder parts of it.
Oh, Mr. Hong, you and your old-fashioned folksy sexism. America? Oh, wait, no, he's in Taiwan.
Yeah.
But his actor...
He's an American at heart, because he hates women.
And he is literally in hundreds of things, and he is 90 years old, and he still has working on like 5 things this year. So it's like, it's weird that he shows up. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's like, oh, James Hong, I know this guy. I saw him in Blade Runner.
Oh, James Hong, I know this guy. I saw him in Balls of Fury. He was in Balls of Fury.
Yeah,
sadly.
there are so many like, wow, he was in really good stuff, and then he was in the third Highlander
This man
movie.
has literally been in everything.
Yeah.
Along with that one comedian with like who does a lot of the southern voices, who looks the same in everything.
Oh.
The guy who in Idiocracy was playing that judge who sounded just like Mr. Strickland from King of the Hill. That guy.
Oh, I can't.
As I can't remember his name, but he is also in everything that has ever existed.
Yeah. Like,
I'm drawing a blank, but I'm really invested in knowing who this person is now.
Look up the guy who played the judge in Idiocracy.
okay.
Eventually.
Like, right now we gotta wrap up this conversation because Elmo has to go to bed.
Oh, we should also mention there's actually evil endings.
Yeah.
And that's the one part of the game I'm not exactly cool with, and like the one thing in Obsidian's design style I'm iffy on, because if you've ever looked around like an RPG forum, you'll quickly discover that a lot of RPG players are really bad at reading reading into stories. This is why I kind of like Vampire the Masquerade, because if you try to do evil endings in that game in Bloodlines, bad shit happens to you in all of them because you are such a fucking dumbass for going that direction in the first place. Like, if you help one villain overthrow another...
We're gonna go America all over their asses!
I won't go into further detail on it. Actually, I might edit that out. Because we are going to talk about that in October. But anyways...
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing Obsidian is kind of bad at is handling the dark story paths, I would say. And I think this is no exception, because Chris Avellone does have a writing style where he wants to explore different philosophies and political ideologies, and he's really good at that. But since he's doing it in the context of an RPG, and he's not trying to preach to the player, but make them judge for themselves with occasional endings that tell you the downsides of a particular ideology, sometimes stuff slips through the cracks if they don't have enough time to actually do that. Like here, for instance, where you can just join Halbeck and you can either like be friends with Henry Leiland, the big idiot, or blow him up and then be King CEO. And
yeah,
I'm not down with that.
Yeah, although they do let you know what kind of route you're going on the first thing, because the first things first is you have to get the data from Mina, who has been your handler, who has been helping the insider Alpha Protocol, and is generally pretty awesome, and she's a nice lady. But the first,
I get where you're coming from, but I'm because bad things happen, but things turn out well for Thornton, which is the important thing here, because I have seen actual gamers that I otherwise do respect in some way on like how they review games and stuff. I've seen them complain that the genocide run in Undertale isn't fun.
But
just what the fuck, people?
Yeah. But the first thing you have to do is eliminate her if you want to go the Leiland path, which is your friend or person or lover that you've spent the entire game with, and you have to kill her. And so it does let you know this is not okay, but how gamers respond to it is another thing.
Yeah, because Thornton is them in this case. They're projecting so much into the character. You need to have consequences in RPGs when you do the Dark Path stuff, which is something that New Vegas does that I like. If you side with Caesar's Legion, you're a fucking moron. It ends badly no matter who ends up in charge of the Legion for you and everyone. It's like, don't do it. Mm-hmm. You fucking idiot. They're like crazy war people who want to turn everyone to slaves. They put bomb collars on. Like, what did you think was going to happen? And like,
in a weird way, I think...
Go on. Go on.
I think the game could have been... I mean, my brain is just a cabbage right now. In a weird way, I feel like the game could have been a bit better if it had been either a little bit more railroaded or if it had actually taken certain options out. Just because the one that sticks in my mind is it was right at the end of the game where Leiland says like, "Oh, you can either come after me or save Mina. What are you going to do?" And he's lying. You can go save Mina, then go after him. It's simple.
Yep.
Although it is a real pain in the ass because if you walk through a door, the door will shut behind you and it will be like, "Oh, we've autosaved," and it turns out Mina was the other way.
Yeah, I have accidentally done that multiple times.
Yeah.
That's how I accidentally... that's never happened to me, but I did accidentally miss out on Scarlet that one time, which is how I got the amazing Stephen Heck Saves My Life ending.
Yep.
Yeah. But the one thing that I just... so I went and saved Mina, and at the end it's like, "Oh, hey, Mina, I've saved you, because this entire game you've had my back, we've slept together, you have a very... +10 relationship with me, it's really good, and I trust you and you trust me," and then this dialogue option pops up and it's like, "Hey, do you want to execute her?" And I was tempted to go yes, just so that I could see how are they going to pull this off in a cutscene. Like, is Mike going to shoot her and then just stand still and then just say out loud, "I don't know why I did that"? Because there is literally the only other game I can think of that actually did this, and it's not very comparable to it at all, was like in Depression Quest.
Oh boy.
Where depending on the options you picked earlier, like later on there were options that you would see, but they would be scored out and you just couldn't take them. And yeah, I feel like that would have been a situation where it's like, why are you giving me the choice to murder her this late in the game? We're basically best friends.
And you can continue on the conversation. I just really have to use the bathroom. My bladder's about to explode.
Okay. Yeah, I would...
Boy, do I like cake.
I really need to get around to finishing, just fucking starting in the first place, Planescape Torment, because I want to look at all of Chris Avellon's stuff and figure out what's the best. And that is still considered the single best written game ever made, so, like, I should probably play it eventually. I would say that KOTOR 2 is probably a better written game than Alpha Protocol overall, because it does way more interesting thematic stuff with how it handles morality and like philosophy. But Alpha Protocol is interesting because it's dealing with real world politics in a really interesting way. It's not the usual very blunt satire we're used to, or preaching or anything. It's Chris Avellone doing what he always does, so you actually get to think about how these characters approach things in their own way. He's very good at giving characters their own, like, inner workings. Very unlike BioWare, which is good at making likable characters, but not necessarily complex characters. Like, Saren in the first game, where his entire interesting story is in a novel you're not going to read because it's incredibly dry. But here you get you don't really get a good idea of who he is, other than people say he wants to kill all the humans, and then you meet him later. It's like, no, I want to save everyone, and like, and you just don't care. But here you get an idea where everyone's coming from, especially Leiland, because you're talking to him throughout the entire game, and you get hints of how he sees the world. Even though he's a giant piece of shit, you can see how a giant piece of shit thinks and actually work with that, and it plays in the gameplay because you're trying to manipulate everyone, and knowing how everyone thinks and approaches situations, it tells you how you can best manipulate someone and tell them what they want to hear.
Okay.
So yeah.
It is my fan canon now that after Little Red Lie, Arthur Fox becomes Henry Leiland.
Oh god. I'm back, by the way.
I can see that. Hello. I was just saying Saren sucked ass. Weird bug man. I don't like it.
I would give Alpha Protocol
Arcturians, birds, or bugs? They're not clear on this.
I would give Alpha Protocol a 9 out of 10, but the issue is I would give Alan Wake a 9 out of 10, and I definitely like Alan Wake more. So I'm gonna say Alpha Protocol it deserves higher than an 8 though, just out of spite for the people who gave it a 2 out of 10. 8.5.
8.9.
17 out of 20.
8.999.
Yes. You know what? It gets not as good as Alan Wake out of 10.
That's fair. As far for me, this was like the game that finally got me into Western RPGs alongside like the Shadowrun games. So I think it's really good, and on replay I'm realizing there's just a lot of things there I didn't really notice as much before, because I had not played its peers yet, and now that I have played its peers, I'm realizing why this game doesn't come up to stuff, because there's just a lot of technical jank due to the rushed development of it, like how certain decisions don't actually get marked as they should, like in Moscow especially. And I noticed there's a lot of graphical glitches, like C's hat clipping through her head. But despite all that, the sheer ambition of this and how much it accomplishes just makes this one of those classics in RPGs I think everyone needs to play at least once. Or no, at least twice, so you can get a good idea just how utterly complicated this web of choices actually is. And then that'll give you more license to call Casey Hudson a hack.
Well,
because he is. Hey, let's get rid of the guy who wrote the good stuff in the first 2 Mass Effect games and replace him with Josh Whedon solving the space racism, which was not even supposed to be what the plot was about. what happened to that dark energy sun thing going on the Korean homeworld? Don't worry about it. It didn't happen. We gotta solve the space racism. I like Mass Effect 3's character writing, but come on.
Anyway,
good game.
For my response to Alpha Protocol, I would call it like the 3.5-star movie I like better than a lot of 4-star movies. Like, this is the problem with the rating system. Like,
you mean this is your beer fest? That's it.
Something like that. But it's like The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. I know that's not as good of a movie as some of the other ones Hosoda does, but for me, it is my favorite, even though it is clearly flawed and has a bunch of plot holes, but I just love it so much. Like, for Alpha Protocol, I played this non-stop for 3 weeks, and sometimes I would play it for 6 to 8 hours at a time, and it was so much that...
I know that feel.
That the soldering of my 360 that was shoddily made for the first 360s, melted, and then, gave me the red ring of death. I played it that much that it broke my first 360. So, obviously, It's a really good game. But that said...
You're the real gamer here.
Yeah, total, real, true Doom gamer. But
Doom Murderhead.
Doom Murderhead, yes. But, if you look at a rating, you have to put everything together. Like, are some of the missions really... badly put together, especially the beginning ones? Yes. Does the gameplay get in the way of some of the enjoyment? Yes. It's like sometimes I don't want to do the missions. I just want to do all this talking to people. I just want to do the dialogue options. I want to see what happens with this. But
I just want to go around in the Mako and flip through the environment.
But, stuff like that. But
Spider Mako.
Does whatever a Spider Mako does. I have no better joke for that.
Which is apparently falling all over the place.
But, so that's in consideration, and also it's, you can see the flaws all over the place. You don't even have to know, this was made after BioShock and Mass Effect, so the graphics aren't as good. Or that, you can see, like, the AI can't handle ladders. If you put them in front of a ladder, they instantly walk up it, or they just stay there for the whole time, or you can see those errors all over the game. And and the biggest thing is, like, for when a game that lets you do anything, you can't really do everything unless you put it on easy mode. Then you can do everything, but you're still gonna die on easy mode. So it's an 8 out of 10, but a very loving 8 out of 10. I mean, it is one of my favorite games, but I can't say, like...
Oh, so this would be your Luminous Arc.
I have never played Luminous Arc.
That game is fucking junk food, and all the sequels are fucking garbage.
Ah, I gotcha. So, but it is a game that holds a special place, and when you say you played it so much it broke your system, that says a lot. So that's what... I
racked up like 100 hours in my first week or two owning this.
Yeah. I have played through like 6 playthroughs before this, and then I racked up another 50 hours on the PC version that they sold for $250. So yeah, I really enjoy it. I also can see its flaws, so I am not super fanboy over it, but it's a wonderful experience if you let it be a wonderful experience. Or if you choose to get shotguns and SMGs, you're going to have a bad time.
Why isn't this all murder run fun?
Yeah, the surprising thing about the murder run is not a whole lot changes. I mean, I still was at the attitude of fuck Leiland, because my attitude was fuck everyone. I'm just going to murder everybody. I'm going to fuck everybody. So not a whole lot changes. It's actually middle of a road as far as worst things, because you save Madison St. James instead of save people because you fucked her. And, that she prevents Patriot attacks. And, it's weird how not a lot changes, even though you're a complete asshole who doesn't know what he's doing, stumbling through everything and literally executing anybody that'll let you execute.
Video game.
Destructoid were right. 2 out of 10. There isn't an ending where Sis is on the boat.
The one
Not,
positive
not, not in a romantic way, but just she's your bodyguard now. That would be great.
There's one positive this game has over BioWare's more polished games. Well, in particular Dragon Age Origin, you don't have to worry about the bullshit that makes you want to never play the game ever again. Dragon Age Origins, there's a mage way in the back there, and it's gonna shoot you with 2,000 boulder-sized fireballs. So go fuck yourself. That's it. That's the game.
Hope you played Mage.
Yeah. Oh my god, there are people who actually play Warrior in Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I tried Rogue as my first playthrough because I thought I could do that. No.
I did it.
I mean, I put it on easy mode to do that. I had to switch it to...
I did it on normal.
Oh, okay.
It is entirely possible as long as you know how to use your party well. Though in the Dwarven section, you will be running and hoping the god you live a lot.
Oh yeah. That happened to me all the time.
Alpha Protocol is a better game. It's not a better game than Mass Effect 2, but it is better than the other Mass Effects.
That I can agree with.
These are the
even
rules
though
now.
I too love the Mass Effect games, and to a certain extent, I love a lot of things at Mass Effect 3, and I did not have the blatant flip out people did at the ending of Mass Effect 3. I'm like, okay, the ending's mediocre, crappy, but there were all these little character moments that you have at the end that make up for it for me. But I mean, I still get it, but it is not.
Casey Hudson is very good at copying Joss Whedon's writing. Except, I heard a clip from Anthem where apparently they made up slang for it, and I think a character says like "frack you" or something.
Okay.
Or something equally stupid, and I wanted to die. This is a good video game. We'll see you all for Doom the next regular episode.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Protect Sis.
Oh.
Protect Sis with your life.
Why would you need to protect her?
That's a good point.
She's probably going to be on top of you.
Not that way, because they
And
cut out that
hurting you.
route.
No. That happened to me.
Oh.
You've never experienced it? If you max out a relationship value...
Oh yeah,
and,
at the end.
And pick her...
Like, it's not sexual. Kind of thing.
No, it is.
Oh, I mean, it's not...
Before she gets you off the table.
We're talking about Sis, not C.
Oh.
We never
I'm
talked about
stupid.
the C moment, did we?
Yeah, see.
Bye, everyone.
I'm so sorry, everyone.
From Detroit, we can see her above the USA. 'Cause there's pride in the Canadian heart, and it's time to spend and say.